It has been said that I have two alternatives: either go to jail or go to the army. But I would like to say that there is another alternative, and that alternative is justice.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Muhammad Ali has just refused to be inducted into the United States Armed Forces.
He refused induction on the grounds of his religious convictions on war.
My conscience won't let me go shoot my brother or some poor hungry people in the mud for big powerful America and shoot them for what? They never called me nigger.
You know, Muhammad Ali is really important in this because when Ali refuses induction, there's a famous column in the New York Times written by Tom Wicker where he just wonders out loud what would happen if you had 100,000 Muhammad Alis. If you had 100,000 people who were prepared to do what Muhammad Ali just did, you would bring this war to a stop. So the draft resistors set that kind of as a goal.
It took an all-white jury less than a half hour to find Muhammad Ali guilty of all charges and specifications. He was sentenced to the maximum, 5 years in prison, and was fined $10,000.
No, I won't be your friend. No, I won't.
I find nothing amusing or interesting or tolerable about this man. He's a disgrace to his country, his race, and what he laughingly describes as his profession. He has been found.
I'm not sure what happened to the video, but welcome to another episode of the Nick and CJ show, Nick and CJ Weekends. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
What's poppin', my friends, my family? Welcome to a Sunday edition of the Nick and CJ show. 7 days in a row with a stream. It's a very exciting. It's a very exciting time to be an RBN subscriber, to be a member of the RBN family. We had such a massive impact in such a short amount of time. We were just talking about that. And apparently, like, Marianne is on Jordan's show, explaining herself or whatever. We gotta get caught up. I saw some people talking about that as well. But I may pop in and out. I'm trying to get this noise down a little bit. But,
Yeah, dude.
I got my brother here. My brother has his son here as well. So I decided to join because I saw the video. I saw a clip flowing on Twitter of Krystal Ball and Jordan, and they're discussing third parties. And of course, they're again this issue completely wrong. They're straw manning, and Krystal dismisses third parties in the third party strategy in the smug, condescending way you expect the PMC to do. This is why they are nervous at the arrival of RBN, because for a long time these people were able to just smugly condescend and straw man third party movements and working class activists without anyone to debunk them and to ask them follow-up questions, because you know there's an epidemic of access journalism. So like Jordan wasn't asking any like hard follow-ups debunking him, or Nina. I don't know if you saw the Nina conversation. I did too. Yeah, I saw that one too. And Nina was like, Jordan, don't say there's all bad cops. Don't say all cops are bad because she got cops in her family. And Jordan was like, no, I would never say that in front of you because I would never want to lose your access. It's like there's an epidemic of access journalism. So these people, they go on these people's show, they spew bullshit about third parties, so then they're afraid of losing their access, so they don't fight against it. But what she's saying is complete nonsense. And I was going to talk about this on Monday, but I saw you had a stream today, and I had some time available. Like there's this football game we're watching over here as well, but I was like, whatever, who gives a fuck at the end of the day. I definitely want to talk about that. So
I think this is going to be an interesting conversation. But quickly, the video is now working.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead, dude. Finish what you're going to say. Go ahead.
My bad, CJ. I was going to say this.
No worries.
The reason why I want to respond to this is because for some reason, third-party activists are meant to just sit here and watch two-party duopoly apologizing simps attack our strategy, and then people think that we're supposed to sit back and take it. RBN, one of the very few, I'm talking about literally a handful of channels at best that is serious about third parties. So we criticize the duopoly supporting leftists because they are directly contradicting our strategy, and they're doing it in a lazy, dumb way, obviously. So then we come out with a video critiquing their idea that criticizes one of our strategies, and then people say, "Oh my God, RBN is always attacking people." It's an attack because we debunked your stupid ideas. You guys see how RBN rejected this environment created in the leftist media sphere where criticizing people's ideas is framed as an attack. So there's some people gonna be like, "Oh my God, you talking Chris?" They're not even attacking Krystal Ball. This is us debunking her bad idea.
Right.
And these people in this media sphere, we did a Bernie industrial complex media sphere breakdown. They all friends with each other. They all hug each other's hands. They all got each other's phone numbers. They all retweet each other, like each other's stuff on Twitter. They all friends. These people you see in the Bernie industrial complex. So anyone who questions each other's ideas, they're like, "Oh my God, that's toxic." They want to create an echo chamber where no one can debunk their nonsense. If you're serious about third parties, if you're serious about destroying the two-party duopoly, we have to debunk the nonsense that someone as influential as Krystal Ball is saying. Because third-party activists, we both just take it. Hearing them say nonsense that makes no sense. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it was some nonsense that obviously Marianne Williamson said some nonsense, but the nonsense about the third part. Actually, I don't want to get into that argument, so let me save that because that is a pivotal point to the argument when we play the video.
Yeah. Let's not spoil
but the point I did still want to make is that I find it very funny, Nick. There's two things in what we're going to be discussing. These interviews. It's on a mega stream that looks very similar. It has very similar looking feel to our summits. I don't know if you saw the whole thing. It's like these are like day one, he labeled them, day two. These are all like his mega weekend, and he having all these guests talk about different things. So I like to say that it's very similar to our summits. The other thing is that the way you described it, you was like, you know how they got to look at us, but act like they not look at us.
Yes.
That's not what this is. Like, they don't want to directly say RBN. They don't want to directly have us on, but they're directly coming on to dispute. Then the timing is telling the whole story. Yep. The timing of this is telling the whole story. But go ahead if you want to.
It is so obvious too, because I see one of the questions where like, there's some people that always want to attack people because they don't agree with everything they say, even though they're close allies. They put out these videos harshly criticizing other people. I don't know who. I mean, we just theoretically there's people out there that just like this. Like, it's obvious what they're talking about. It's directly obvious. They're like, "Oh my God."
They keep framing it like we're allies and we're not, and you keep explaining that. No, we're not. We're saying build up a third party. And this is another thing that Marianne Williamson and a lot of PMC said, yeah, let's do everything. You know what? We can't, because participating in the duopoly pulls too many resources for us to build up the third party. This is why third parties haven't been built up. It's because they really can't be done. And I like the way you said 15% electoralism and then everything else. So that means all of our candidates should be running third parties. Doesn't matter if we're going to be winning. But to them, Nick, the PMC class, because they're the petty bourgeoisie, they aspire to be in the ruling class, right? So all they see is wins and losses.
Yeah.
They don't care anything if the policy is going to be delivered. Oh, our guy got ones. This is why they fight for the squad. That's a win that they're elected, but what are they doing? So that's why they don't see they don't see like the logic in a third building up. What do you mean? Taking time to build up something from scratch? They don't see. You don't say they don't see that.
And the reason why we call it the Bernie Industrial Complex, because it's rooted in the fact that they want to continue to get paid to do the same thing over and over again. I can't wait till we get to the Krystal Ball video. I'm not gonna spoil too much of it, but it's funny because the segment before, and the reason I'm saying this, because I don't know how much of the video got saved. They did a segment before that conversation where they bash third parties, where they talk about how Biden and the Democratic Party is rigging the 2024 primary by moving South Carolina. No, I'm dead serious. If you want to rewind literally like 5 minutes, and I was about to break it down this way, I might do it this way anyway, because
you're talking about Krystal Ball? Because we're gonna watch the whole Krystal Ball Krystal Ball segment.
That's perfect. So guys, this is
10 minutes. It's 10 minutes long. Aaron, we're watching the whole thing.
Aaron, we gotta make sure we include this correctly when we cut this, because they literally do a segment before they bash third parties where they talk about how Biden and the Democratic Party is rigging the primary in South Carolina. And then Krystal like, oh my God, it's so obvious that Biden is trying to rig the primary in his favor by putting South Carolina up front. They trying to push New Hampshire aside because he did horrible in that state. So while making the argument that the Democratic Party is currently rigging their primaries, they did turn around 3 minutes later and then say, oh man, third parties will never win. What's the point of doing that? You just said the DSC is going to rig it against the progressive. Anyway, I'm spoiling on my arguments. I'm gonna wait till
this is kind of because that's actually one of the points I have written down as to attack some of the points she had. But let me finish this intro video because it is important. It's like 30 seconds. I finally figured out what was wrong. So let's just listen to the rest of what they're saying about Muhammad Ali not wanting to go fight in a war.
He's a simplistic fool and a pawn.
Do you share the same concern that Muhammad has for his draft status?
Oh, I certainly do. My views on the draft are very clear. I'm against it. And I think the sooner our country does away with the draft, the better it will be for everybody.
And that's the end of the video. It was only a few seconds, but I just wanted to give it its just due. Before, let's do some announcements, and we're going to jump right into this topic because it's hot on both of our lips. I got the video queued up. So join our Substack if you want to get notifications like a stream like this, completely unannounced, completely unscheduled. If you're on our Substack, you'll always be on top of when we do streams like this. You also get notifications when we do clips. And that Aaron Monte Vanguard clip is like at 7,000. It blew up. Like that clip blew up.
Yeah,
go ahead.
The Vanguard is so cringe. People have been waiting for us to call them out in the video. So
yeah, that's true.
And people want to hear someone say that because they are so annoying, and they believe that they believe they sit on this moral value like mountain when they can judge anybody, and no one takes them seriously. And so people have been waiting for that interview for quite some time. For us to criticize them, so
we fine.
Okay. It's funny.
All right. RBN is at 30,500. Thank you for everybody, and for those that have critiques of our critiques of Marianne Williamson, just understand it's hitting a chord somewhere because we've gained a good substantial amount of followers just off of this interview and just us talking about this subject. Yeah, go ahead.
So the biggest criticism that I personally have gotten that I am too hard on a politician. Like I take that criticism if you think I'm too hard on a presidential candidate. Marianne Williamson, the criticism that she get is that she is not an effective leftist leader after the answers that she gave me. So who got out of that on top? So like now they are in damage control mode. Which is great.
Yeah, it feels like they are in total damage control. We're at 255 people watching. Could we get 225 likes? If we get that, we can get a good amount of people in here for this conversation. Now, we know a lot of you will watch it on replay, but we like to have a lot of people live just for the lively discussions we have. And we already have a good amount of comments I'll toss up before we get started. But let's push to 225 and let's toss up some comments. Nick, if you see any, I
saw a few
super chats.
Okay. Thank you for the $5, Colin. Nick, thank you and Sally for your interview. I talked about your interview on stream last night, and everyone in the comments are not for the Marianne Williamson BS. That's why, like, despite I still do got a lot of frustration. I couldn't finish the interview, but when I look back at it, like the only people I see that is really upset about like how Marianne Williamson was treated are the professional managerial class Democratic Party simps. So I'm seeing the people upset. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Then I see the people who are working class, the people who are tired of hearing the politicians bullshit. There's so many people like, yeah, I'm glad, fuck Marianne Williamson. I'm glad that you guys exposed her. So I'd rather have the workers cheer me on for calling out a politician and having the politician simps mad at me than the other way around. I'd rather have, instead of the workers being mad at me, I protected the politician like everyone else does. That would. That's
how they like it though. That's why they understand. Because think about it. Because all the workers hate ALC and all their idols, but love the workers still.
Yeah, so and Jordan lost a lot. Jordan from Status Quo lost a lot of credibility for attacking activists while defending Nina Turner. So you guys see how it's flipped. They attacked workers while defending the politician. On this channel, we attack the politician while defending the perspective of the worker, and while the worker cheering us on, which is fine with us. Thank you for the $10, Colin. Jordan should have asked Kyle or Krystal why they're turning away from third parties when Kyle and Cenk wrote in their principles for Justice Dems to help make third parties or independent candidates more viable. Of course, Jordan not going to ask that question because, as we explained before, the Bernie media industrial complex have a giant problem with access journalism. They became the same thing they claimed they wanted to defeat. They don't want to ask hard questions because they don't want to lose access to these people. That's why, like, their mind is blown on how I treated Marianne Williamson interview. There's some people like, oh, I already laughed about this on the stream before. They're like, oh my God, you guys are never gonna get Marianne on here again. You guys are never going to get politicians and names on again. I'm like, why should I care about that? But they do, because they know they're not very interesting. They don't have nothing interesting to say. They know they have to rely on having big, high key guests to grow the show. So the idea that we don't care about access blows their mind. Blows their mind. You don't want to talk to the orb lady? You're not blown away by the orb lady? What? Anyway, this whole thing has been funny. The reactions a lot of people have been extremely funny to me. The last one, I'll pass back to you, CJ. Thank you for the $10, Scott, for a solidarity super chat. Now I'll pass back to you, CJ.
Absolutely. So here at the Nick and CJ show, we are post-duopoly, and we would hope that a lot of you in our community are also post-duopoly. And Nick and I both had the same reasons for wanting to do this stream, and that was just to hear the sort of attacks on the third party and just sort of like, I'm gonna call it propaganda. I'm trying to be nice and not call it lies, Nick. I'm trying to be nicer. Remember, I'm trying to do this a little bit nicer. Yeah, we want this to be all policy driven and not based on, policy driven. Let's leave it there. So third party propaganda is what both of us wanted to zero in on. Now, there's other points that we're going to be making. Now, Nick, I would like to kind of maybe play 2 minutes through and then go back, because I have literally every 10 seconds I have something to say. Everything.
Yeah, I'll be good.
I don't want to do that in the beginning, so let's try to play maybe a minute. Maybe let's try to do 60 seconds at a time. And then
I'll be good. I'm gonna sit here
and now I'm telling myself this, and I'm just saying it out loud. I'm telling myself.
I know it's mostly me guilty, guys. I know. I take the criticism well. That mostly I stop videos too much. I understand, so I'm good.
Let's try. Let's hold ourselves.
Within the Democratic Party versus third party. Krystal was pretty straightforward on that point, and I think she made a good point. A lot of people aren't going to like it, but I think she had a good point. So here's my interview with Krystal Ball. Again, this happened yesterday, but you could donate throughout this interview, and we'll give you a shout out after. And once we're done with that, Steve Grumbine will be joining us. Here we go. Joined by Krystal Ball of Breaking Points. A lot going on. Basically, we're already kind of in the 2024 circuit on both sides, and classified documents popping up everywhere. And obviously, America's rot down south, what's going on in Memphis and elsewhere. Kind of wanted to start with, I guess you could say, a checkup, if we were patients. Where do you think we are with the progressive movement, and what do you think is needed the most? We're not blind. Obviously, it's fractured. A lot of, the Bernie movement has splintered off a tad bit and been kind of deflated over the years. Do you think kind of the best thing is a primary challenger to Biden? Do you think the best thing is focusing on the local level, or, to hell with all of it and tossing ourselves into the union, organizing a worker strike, et cetera?
I mean, I don't think any of those things are mutually exclusive. You know how committed I am to the union movement, and I think that's one of the most hopeful things going on in America. But I also think that given the fact we just saw from the Bureau of Labor Statistics that even in a year where we had monumental, potentially transformational union wins, we also continued our long-term decline in terms of overall union density, so the percentage of the workforce that are members of unions. So to me, that just reinforces that there is no avoiding getting in, doing battle, and changing the landscape so that it's not so rigged against working class people. That certainly means local office, but I think it also really clearly means a challenge to Joe Biden in the 2024 primary. I mean, it's not an accident that after Bernie, there was all this fracturing and division and the whole thing kind of falling apart. I think it matters to have national voices, national leadership. I think it matters to have a cause that people can look at across the country and ultimately get behind and unify behind. So I do think that that's an exciting prospect right now.
Obviously, right now, the main figure being rumored about is Marianne Williamson, who ran in 2020.
In response to what she just said, she discussing organizing. Well, I am assuming she's talking about the working class around the idea and goal. There is a poll that showed that 50% of American voters are now registered independent. Most Americans now want a third party. So these are things that most Americans want to rally behind. The people that are the number one obstacle for third parties are people like Krystal Ball. The people who like, oh yeah, there's a problem, but let's not do third parties right now. If
this is why I call them the moderate.
Yes,
go ahead. No, sorry, go ahead.
I know, so no, you're good. I'll pass it right to you. If we had you guys on our side, we wouldn't have the problem of failing to pick up steam on third parties. You guys are the ones who are stopping that from happening. That's why we had to come out and rebuke you. The American people are ready. And you guys just did a segment explaining how Biden is rigging this primary against you guys. You got the idea that Marianne Williamson stands as much of a chance as Bernie Sanders, who's way more popular, is ridiculous. If you nail these people against the wall, they will admit that this is not really about winning, it's about messaging. Okay, if it's about messaging, let's message that the two-party duopoly is corrupt because it is. Go ahead, CJ.
No, what I was gonna say is what you're pointing out, because in it with that first part that you were talking about, how the impediment for third parties to grow are these professional managerial class types like her. Now think back to MLK's white moderate, and in the stream I did, I told people we need to update the lingo because white moderate now can be any race. So and progressive is should be the word that we're using instead of, because they're the ones who are obstacles to strike breaking, right? Look, you see what I'm saying? They're the ones who obstacles to being anti-war and anti-imperialist. They're funding Ukraine. They're funding Israel. So they're the ones that's obstacle to fixing the police state. They're out here acting like they're down with the cause when they're the ones who's funding the police state. So the progressive is the new updated term that we should use when we're using that white moderate example. It is the progressive who is playing that role. Go ahead, Nick, if you had any more.
Let's play the video. I have more thoughts as the video play.
Okay, so we'll try to play a little longer, and then I'm gonna rewind back because I have a lot of stuff to add here. I have written down here.
Has stayed active since then with a podcast and going on various shows. She has an exploratory committee right now, and the Washington Post.
Let me go back just a second because I don't remember him saying the name Marianne. So maybe
we missed a few seconds. So
I must have missed something.
Go back to the beginning of Jordan speaking.
Yeah, right here. Oh, I might have went back too far, but that's all right if I did. I might have went back too far.
I ask you, to me, I understand why progressives are deflated, but you have to actually look at Biden's strength and relative weakness. I mean, COVID really did end Trump in 20.
No, I'm gonna go back further. I don't feel like that's it either. Right here. So I may have went back too far, but we'll just watch it from here.
It also really clearly means a challenge to Joe Biden in the 2024 primary. I mean, it's not an accident that after Bernie there was all this fracturing and division and the whole thing kind of falling apart. I think it matters to have national voices, national leadership. I think it matters to have a cause that people can look at across the country and ultimately get behind and unify behind. So I do think that that's an exciting prospect right now.
Obviously, right now, the main figure being rumored about is Marianne Williamson, who ran in 2020. Has stayed active since then with a podcast and going on various shows. She has an exploratory committee right now, and the Washington Post, of all places, did a decent write-up, actually. I was surprised. Here's the headline. Potential Biden challenger, Marianne Williamson, heads to New Hampshire. A recent poll has Biden not so great for the sitting president in New Hampshire. 66% of Democrats don't want him to run again in New Hampshire.
I gotta make this point because he's talking about polls, and I see them keep making this argument. They haven't learned anything, CJ. They haven't learned a goddamn thing. the progressive movement. Polls show that Bernie was about to win. Polls show that Nina Turner was up 20 points against Chantel Brown at the beginning of the race. They haven't learned anything. Why did they lose those elections? Because the establishment figured out how to defeat them by coalescing on the last week and pouring dark money into the race. So you guys are making quite literally the same mistake again, where you got like, oh my God, we can win because the polls. You guys gonna be like, oh my God, everything's all right. Then last week they gonna pour dark money in. You guys gonna be sitting there dumb again, like, oh my God, I thought the polls said we were winning. Like, this is ridiculous. But I just want to make that point that they keep doing this. Go ahead, CJ.
Man, it's like you can see the future, Nick, or it's just they keep making the same mistake,
making the same mistake
over and over. All right,
Mayor Pete, or Transportation Pete, is beating him. Even Bernie and Warren are somewhat close to Biden in that poll. I ask you, to me, I understand why progressives are deflated, but you have to actually look at Biden's strength and relative weakness. I mean, COVID really did end Trump in 2020. Arguably, if he would have given another check, which later on, Trump blames Mitch McConnell for not giving an additional COVID check. Arguably, Trump could have won re-election, even though he was disastrous in handling COVID. Obviously, we know what just happened in the midterms. It wasn't an endorsement of Biden. The overturning of Roe v. Wade played a huge part. What do you think in terms of it obviously historically would be an uphill climb, but if it were Marianne Williamson, her being competitive?
There is no doubt an insurgent campaign is always going to be difficult, and the odds are always going to be stacked against you, and the DNC is always going to do everything they can to rig it against you in the media. Although, right now they sort of like the drama of Biden appearing weak and this sort of like internecine battle over the order of the primary states. Once they see you as a serious contender, they're gonna be out for blood. All of that is,
I'm gonna say here, a serious contender. Now, in their own, earlier they were talking about how Washington Post surprisingly wrote something good. If the Washington Post is writing something for you good, that means you're not a threat whatsoever. And they know that.
The only thing I'm saying, I see no evidence of this. The independent Bernie Sanders media sphere is manufacturing consent around Marianne Williamson.
Yes, they are.
And the reason why I say that is because they are saying stuff with no data. I seen 2024 polling predictions, which I think is irrelevant. But the only data I see people like Pete Buttigieg lead. I see Kamala lead. I see AOC like 7%. I see Bernie at 5%. I see if I can find the old polls. But they are operating with no data. There's no primary poll that showed Marianne Williamson at 25%, Pete Buttigieg at 20%. They are just saying this, and they hope people leave with that impression. That data does not exist. What they want to do right now, they want to manufacture consent and to their audience that Marianne Williamson is this randomly popular figure that's going to do what Bernie Sanders did 2 times in a row. It doesn't make any sense, and it shows that they have no respect for their audience. And this Bernie Sanders cult just accepts it without even any critical thinking skills. CJ at RBN, I told you, we trying to bring critical thinking skills back. Critical thinking skills. Bernie Sanders, Nina Turner, figures that are way more popular than Marianne Williamson could not do this. But you guys are going to manufacture consent for Marianne Williamson, who believes in the 2-state solution, supports funding the Ukraine war, and is so weak that she can't take questions from a college dropout. That's the person that's going to do this impossible task. It's unserious.
It's unserious.
Krystal doesn't believe it. Jordan doesn't believe it. The Vanguard doesn't believe it. No one believes it. This is access journalism. This is them doing a favor for the friends. And RBN is the only people who are not trying to make friends. We're not the only fucking weasel, cowardly, elbow-rubbing people that try to get access that will call it out. This is dumb and a waste of worker resources.
We have to understand that these are all, like you're saying, Krystal, even Jordan, even friend of the show, Bree, even Colin Kalinske, when they were on their show, these are her personal friends. They have said this on screen, how they're her friends, and they really like her. So understand these are personal friends going out, essentially stomping for their friend, making it seem like it's just legit.
And people
without
call
no
RBN
evidence.
and people say RBN is toxic because we're the only people that calling out this blatant access journalism, this blatant manufacturing of consent that is done by quote unquote independent media. Left independent media regress so bad. RBN calling out access journalism and dumb logic is considered toxic now. Go ahead, CJ.
Certainly true. However, do not buy the media narrative that Biden is some strong leader, that he's inevitable, and that he doesn't have weaknesses, not only with the general electorate at large, but specifically in the Democratic base. That poll that just came out of New Hampshire, the White House is shitting bricks about it. I mean, right now, like, it makes me barf that it's Pete that's beating Biden, but the fact that you have an incumbent president of the United States, someone who supposedly, we were told after the midterms, really shored up his position, he's really in a position of strength, et cetera, you're losing to Pete, the dude who just like screwed up the entire airline system and broke a rail strike. You're losing to that guy in a key early primary state. And you have—
I have to say, because this is where my notes begin. This is what I had down. Krystal pretends that Pete having a higher approval rating even after the airline debacle than Biden is shocking. I don't understand how that's shocking considering all the other stuff that Biden has done that's worse than that. You get what I'm saying? You're pretending as if, Biden is underwater and he's doing good, and even Pete is, who's doing way worse, but Biden is doing terrible too. That's the problem with your analysis here, Krystal. So let's continue. Unless you want to read.
We can continue. We can continue. Okay.
Have 66% of the Democrats in that state saying, we don't even want you to run again. And we're supposed to be persuaded that this guy is unbeatable and you can't possibly defeat him, and don't even bother, don't even try.
That doesn't mean that you have polls showing that before. People were supporting Biden over Bernie. Like they keep doing this. That poll does not mean they will not vote for Biden. That's
whatsoever.
It's bullshit. It's complete nonsense.
But the other thing is, why are we pretending as if, and apologies to anybody who lives in New Hampshire, but why are we pretending as if New Hampshire made a difference anywhere? Like, no, New Hampshireans don't want them, so that means we want Marianne Williamson? Like, I mean, like that's kind of a switch to me, but I guess. But again, this is exaggerating points in order to make their friend look good. This is literally manufacturing consent. I didn't even look at it that way till you mentioned that.
One of the super chats I'm going to read right now just because it fits.
Go ahead.
This super chat I saw, it said, how did Marianne become the one? ? Honestly, because we just explained, we explained it. Marianne became the one because she got media friends in independent media. It was a smart move on her behalf. When she ran for president in 2020, she decided to come on a lot of these people's show. She decided to befriend a lot of these people because she was playing the long game. Very, very smart. So then in 2024, she had people immediately manufacture consent and anoint her in a very anti-democratic way, in a very Hillary Clinton, DNC kind of way, where like, we're going to anoint our friend here. This is the candidate. This guy we're going to be around. This is the only reason why people talk about Marianne. It's because of this. It's because of this Bernie media industrial complex. No one on the hood, no one in the streets, no one in third parties, no Marxists, no communists. Like, nigga, we can't wait to Marianne Williamson run. Nigga, just the boutique professional managerial class. Go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, and I must say, you know how Z, the girl Z, co-host. I must say in the beginning, like the first 20 minute of the show, she does say Marianne Williamson did say she would do the dirty break or something like that, which is just not. That's just not true. Or she would go third party if they didn't.
Why
that's just
would
not
you
true.
guys even want your third party leader to be someone who don't even fundamentally believe in third parties?
Right.
My interview exposed that she don't fundamentally believe in third parties. She yearned for the days of the Democratic Party. Big shout out to Dude Dissident. They did a great breakdown of our conversation. And they explain how, like, when she talked about how she had this nostalgia of the Democratic Party, it's like, what the fuck that had to do with the conversation? You having nostalgia of the Democratic Party that has nothing to do with the fact the Democratic Party is corrupt right now. So you guys want to anoint a third party leader that's weak at advocating for third parties? Jill Stein, who friend the show, who I voted for, who is an amazing leader, she is great at debunking the two-party duopoly nonsense. The reason they stopped inviting her on CNN because she had 7% at one point because they used to invite Jill Stein on, and she used to destroy these people. They took her off the TV. They banned her because she had 7%, almost got the federal funding that she needed. I showed that receipt many times. So you guys want to anoint Marianne. Imagine if she did do the dirty break, she go third party, and then she get grilled, and then she can't even defend third parties because she don't believe in the idea. Right. So if we're gonna have a third party leader, we need someone who not only believes it in their mind, spirit, and soul, but someone who's gonna work on it from the beginning to build the momentum in the working class movement that is needed. They want to make a shortcut where let's get media exposure and hopefully we can build a movement out of nowhere. There's no vision. So why would you even want that person to do the dirty break for you? But go ahead, CJ. Let's continue.
I also think they might have some self-inflicted wounds here. I mean, the Washington Post story points out, this is Mo Elite, he's with the DNC Rules Committee, on Biden trying to knock New Hampshire off as the first primary state and put South Carolina in its place. Quote, I think this ought to put even more pressure on the New Hampshire Democratic Party to figure out how to get this done. If I were them, I'd be very careful right now about giving out the impression that they are opening the doors to challenging the president. But the New Hampshire primary, the Democratic Party head in New Hampshire has said, yeah, you trying to bump us out is actually going to embolden a primary challenge because people in New Hampshire take their place as the first primary state very seriously. Biden, I know some people don't like the word. He's trying to rig it, put South Carolina first to benefit him.
Yes. And, he loves to postulate, this is all about having more diversity in the Democrat. Come on, dude. We see what you're doing here. You performed like shit in Iowa. You performed like trash in New Hampshire. You got like 5th place. And so you don't want them to have a say because you don't want to hear.
Go ahead.
Only I said this is the funniest part of the whole conversation. I'm glad we watched the thing because this is the part of the conversation where they make the argument that Biden and the Democratic Party is rigging the 2024 primary because South Carolina went heavily for Joe Biden, and they will again, or any neoliberal the Democratic Party and Jim Clyburn endorsed. So the Democratic Party is going to put South Carolina first and then put Joe Biden weak states last. And that is what they're covering right now. So this shows that they are stacking the field against the progressives. And I haven't heard a strategy for the progressives to defeat this yet. But so this shows that they know that Marianne Williamson and the progressives won't win in this rigged primary. But then they're going to criticize third parties because they say, well, you're not going to win third parties. But you just admit the Democratic primary race. So if we're gonna run a race where we know we're not gonna lose, let's run a race where we are exposing the two-party duopoly and we don't have to sign a contract where we have to endorse the guy at the fucking end. Let's continue.
And what I said also about this whole rigging of the race and primaries, it's like, to me, this is a nothing burger. Is like whatever state goes first. What is that going to do? They're going to create whatever ending they want. And you saw it this time. What did you hear? Nobody has ever won the presidency after losing New Hampshire and Iowa. But magically it happened that year that Biden won it. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. Like stuff that never happened before. They just going to make it happen because they're a private corporation. They can do whatever they want. Literally. Nothing's going to happen. The Democratic Party is a private corporation. So in their primaries, they can do whatever they want. Super delegates, dark money, nothing. So I don't get it. I don't get it.
There's a one to tank party. There's an article. I'll report on this 1,000 times. It's been a while. Here it is. I might be ad block, but I'm gonna share this real quick. It's a very old story.
Yeah, let me put this down.
Because I won't be able to read it because for the New York Times. So the New York Times reported. You guys see the ad block here. This is like right after Bernie Sanders won Nevada, when he was riding high. They came out with this article. Democratic leaders willing to risk party damage to stop Bernie Sanders. So even if Bernie, quote unquote, won and the establishment didn't soundly defeat them with their newfound dark money strategy, apparently, even then they still would have rigged it. They still would have rigged it against them. And they know that. But go ahead. I just want to ask
so what
go
do you
ahead.
think the ruling class? So what do you think the ruling class cares about? Being embarrassed in front of silly voter workers, or losing the election? Come on, man. They don't care if you see them and they come out and be brazenly rig the election and then there's backlash. Who cares? They don't care as long as their installed person, dementia or not, like Joe Biden, is in. They don't care. Workers are mad. Oh, well, they don't care. Let's go back to this interview, Nick.
What they have to say. So you put a state that you are taking for granted effectively in South Carolina, you want to put them at the front of the line. I think this calling that this is about diversity, it's so transparent that it's really just a power play. So yeah, people in New Hampshire are extremely pissed, not just the party leadership. I think that's part of what's being reflected in this poll is they feel like they're being shoved aside. They feel like they're being ignored. And it's not going to be easy to pull off either, by the way, because there's actually state law in New Hampshire that it has to be like the first primary state in the country. And so
let me just say this because it's on my mind. This is another reason, like all of these intricate things and steps and all this all these things you have to do because the system is so corrupt. Why not just go third party? You have all of these. We have to, leverage this. We got to do this within your own party. And it feels like, Nick, it's bogged down with all of this bureaucracy and steps and maneuvering so that you don't get nothing done. You're constantly having to talk long periods about just procedural stuff, just to do it this way. Go ahead.
And the professional managerial class is okay with that because they're paid handsomely during this. They're paid very well in the process of doing this. Their needs are taken care of. Meanwhile, the workers, we are tired of this shit, but no, let's continue to go through these procedures. About to get paid again. And we like, man, we're struggling, we broke, we hungry right now, we need healthcare. No, don't worry, we just gotta go through the procedures. I know them and Democrat Party really hard to work with, aren't they? And let me take that. Yeah, direct deposit. Right in my pocket. Right there. So but we gotta do it. Let's keep working the party. It's like you see how they continue to win, and how much money is Marianne Williamson and Krystal worth. So it's okay for them to continue to go through this bullshit that they know not going to work because their material needs are more than taken care of. Meanwhile, people like us, I covered the Home Depot boxes. I saw some people like, oh my God, Nick Cruz says he's a socialist Marxist, but he had Home Depot boxes here. That's my brother's boxes because he has to live here because we're broke. So he had to take boxes, and my brother lives here because he otherwise be homeless. That's the reality. So
I love how people think they're critiquing you, and you're like, what?
You're working class, bro. Like us, people who are broke, people like me who don't have health care, I don't care about your procedures. I want you to explain with critical thinking skills and logic how your strategy makes sense. And through many live streams, and like this one as well, we explain to you guys why it does not. But then they want to silence the working class using civility politics. So we just go along while they continue to collect their paychecks every 2 weeks, right? I hope you guys understand my point. But go ahead, CJ.
So they are planning to stick with that. And then becomes this big question of whether the DNC is going to censor candidates and try to, harm candidates who compete in that state. Like, are they going to deny them delegates? Are they going to censure them in some sort of way? So this is getting really ugly really fast. The comments from Ray Buckley, who's the longtime party chair in New Hampshire, real heavyweight in terms of like Democratic Party politics. Everybody knows this guy, that he's in there in the Washington Post suggesting like, hey, dude, hey, Mr. President, if you take us for granted and you don't campaign here, you could be opening the door for humiliating us to someone like an insurgent candidate, an outsider candidate, maybe potentially like Marianne Williamson.
I love how they keep saying maybe because they don't want to seem like they're forcing it on us. when we already could call that shit a long time ago. Like they're not forcing it. Yeah, if she tries, when everybody knows if you're at an explored story stage, that means you're basically gonna run. You have to find something egregious at that point not to run. But go ahead, Nick.
An insurgent candidate. I'm like, I don't know, baby. I'm just floating a name out there. I don't know my friend Marianne. just floating some names out there. Surely not me just picking on my friends. Think of everyone you think of. Why didn't they just pick? Why not Chris Edges or something? They like, I don't know, man. I don't know if she's running for sure, but I don't know. Maybe I heard Marianne Williamson. Who you thinking fooling here? Anyway, continue, TJ.
Right. Let me ask you before we move on to the Republicans.
Oh, here goes the question.
Obviously, there's a growing portion of the left who this is a non-starter. They think we're circling.
So this is. Let me. I want to set this
There's
question.
Look. I'm not looking at you. There's a portion of the left. There's a portion. I don't know who they are. I mean, I don't know. Random people, I guess. People looking at us without looking at us.
So this is an obvious setup question to respond to us. So this is PMC's respond to RBN. This is literally what this is, because and I'll explain more as they talk more. But let's let it play a little bit.
The wagons and its insanity to run again within the Democratic Party would want Marianne or somebody else to skip it and run as a third-party candidate. My view is simply, I don't have a problem with a third-party candidate, but I just look at what within the last 5 years has been the closest thing to victory. For everyone's despair and deflation, not so long ago, Bernie was like on the 5-yard line of winning the Democratic nomination. I think Bernie's campaign had some self-inflicted wounds, but Bernie Sanders, I mean, remember, Chris Matthews was.
I must, because I wrote a whole thing on this.
This is ridiculous.
This is. They keep using this argument about Bernie Sanders getting the closest to victory. So the professional managerial class wants us to believe the Democratic Party, the Democratic primary, is not rigged. That's what they're trying to
like. Jordan, you was at Iowa. You was at Iowa covering what they did with Pete Buttigieg, and now you guys are gaslighting people that Bernie was almost there. Oh man, if only we pushed a little bit harder, we could have won. If only we pushed a little harder. Like we just explained, you guys cannot defeat the strategy of dark money. And notice how there's no material. This is what no Marxist analysis does to a motherfucker. There's no analysis of the resources wasted by the working class. Notice how no one can answer this question. Not a single person. Marianne couldn't. Not a single person who against third parties who visit RBN will be able to answer this question. Why should the working class waste another $100 million on an election that you know we will not win? Instead of that money going to mutual aid, strike funds, you guys talking about union drives. That money goes to unions. And you can say, oh, well, I already donated to unions. Okay, imagine we got 100 million more. Let's talk about strategy. Isn't that more strategic for us to have 100 million more for whatever you donate to the unions, right? If you a big union person, let's talk about strategy. We need to raise union strike funds.
And then she said in your interview,
we need to raise funds for the working class so people can stay home and then do soft general strikes. If we had a strike fund, more people will be able to take a risk and unionize. So Krystal said she cares so much about unions and the working class movement, the labor movement. How do you think they got those resources? We need more of those resources if you're serious about that. So let's not waste our time running an election that you know deep down inside that you're not going to win. You guys understand? You understand they're never going to address this point in this conversation?
Ever.
Go ahead, CJ.
And let me read something I wrote down about the same topic. They want us to believe the charade that is put on that is called the Democratic primary, which, by the way, I said this earlier, is ran by private corporations that can do whatever they want to elect whatever primary candidate we want. We saw it with the rigging of Bernie Sanders twice, whether it was with Hillary Clinton or the DNC, Hillary Clinton through the DNC, or when Obama came in and put his hand around Bernie. The Democratic primary process, Nick, is a story where we already know the end. It's going to be a corporate-owned candidate. We already know that. But this hopeism, Nick, this is what you call this hopeism has got people really believing in the fantasy that somehow we can come up with a surprise ending to the Democratic primary.
It's pure hopeism. Yeah, it's literally toxic positivity that they are spreading here. Some bullshit that they know that they will profit from. Well, go ahead, CJ.
And hysterical that the Nazis were invading Paris after Bernie won Nevada. He was assumed for like a couple days that he was about to win the Democratic nomination. So it's not so long ago within the Democratic Party, an actual progressive had a chance.
Then they poured dark money in the campaign. Then they coalesced around the candidate and you lost. Then the same thing happened with Nia Turner. Then Nia Turner ran and she was up 20 points, 15, 20 points. Then they coalesced around the candidate, poured a ton of money, and then they lost. So the question needs to be, what is the strategy? And you need to explain this to the working class. And you are owed this. And we're not being mean. People are like, oh my God, you've been mean to a presidential candidate because you're demanding why we should give money to them. You guys fucking serious? So your job is to explain to us, the working class, the people who actually do the work on the campaigns, like I did in Bernie. No one did more than I did in terms of thousands of doors knocked on, organizing in South Carolina. You guys want us to do work. So you explain to me how you got a different strategy that's going to overcome what Bernie Sanders and Nia Turner did not.
And you know what I want to address too, because in that interview, when you were pushing back on this $100 million on Washington, she was like, well, working class, $5 here. She was trying to make it seem like it was only $5. Have you seen the price of eggs lately? Yeah. $5 won't get you a dozen. It won't get you eggs.
And that doesn't address the point. If that working class person only has $5 to give,
right,
why shouldn't she give it to mutual aid or a strike fund or for anything else other than a waste of time campaign? And that's the follow-up, and that's the answer they cannot give, because they can posture on these shows about how much they care about the working class movement and how much they care about unions, but put your money where its mouth is. Let's be smart and let's put more money to this movement then, instead of to these fake politicians. And they're so disconnected to the working class, they don't even think this way. They're millionaires, so Krystal's like, we can do both. I stand 1,000 to this candidate, I put 1,000 to this candidate, and then I put 1,000 to the strike fund, and then I'm like, okay, what about the people who got limited fund? And I always bring this up, and then I never get an answer, which led Marianne Williamson to say, if you had the same pen that I do, that you should not vote for her. Remember? That's the answer to this. If you believe the working class should be smart about how they spend their resources, don't vote for me. That's the message of the Marianne Williamson campaign, endorsed by Krystal Ball and Jordan Sheridan. I want you guys to understand that.
Yeah. And this comment, this super chat, thank you, Paula Jones. They won't come right out and say Arbian's name because they don't.
Why
they do not want people listening to you. And I was gonna say, I actually have that written down. The reason they don't want to come invite us on, the reason they don't see our name and they go like this, like I'm not looking at you, is because they know they can't open that Pandora's box, because they know we are making valid, logical points that cannot be heard by their audience, or we're gonna be picking them off.
And to prove the point of that, it's not like they don't talk to people they disagree with. They will have a conversation with the Trump supporter and the right winger in the quickness. Oh my God, I'm gonna debate this right winger. I'm gonna destroy this liberal. But when it comes to someone to the left, they don't want to do that because they're not confident. Why are they so afraid of our message being heard by their audience? We literally will show them their message and laugh at them here, but they're afraid to show our stuff because they know we're persuasive.
You can come on here and have a 5-minute monologue where you talk with graphs and charts. We're not afraid for our audience to hear what you're saying and your strategy.
Not at all.
Because we can debunk it easily and have done. So
to win the nomination, we can't really say that about a third party candidate. That doesn't mean you don't try to grow the third party movement. But what do you say to people who are critical of Marianne or anyone that's going to run again within the Democratic Party?
I think you put it perfectly, Jordan. How did Bernie Sanders do? How close did he get to the White House? How close did the Green Party get to the White House? It's simple. I mean, we don't have to, I don't know if people have noticed, there's a lot of crises.
Did you catch the same sort of attitude? Like, why do I even have to explain to these peasants? Like, come on,
Yeah.
it's simple. It's this.
Yeah.
It's simple. If you can't get this basic math, this is simple. Go ahead. You're gonna.
Yeah, I
chime
want
in.
her to continue her answer, but I want to say this.
Absolutely.
Listen to how smug and condescending her answer is about to be to people who support our strategy, and then we come out and debunk their stupid bullshit like we about to. Trust me. And then they say, "Oh my God, Arvin, you're being so mean. Why are you going after us?" It's like you're a smug, condescending prick, and you guys go on your shows where you're used to an echo chamber and RBN not existing, and you're used to being smug, condescending, calling workers and third-party activists dumb, and then we respond to you, and you're like, "Oh my God, you're being mean." So I'm about to be mean here because Krystal is about to be smug, condescending, and she's about to straw man our argument with a very poor logic. But I want to continue because I want you guys to see the energy that comes from them as they call us toxic. There's a reason why I didn't really care about talking about this, but I wanted to join you because I saw a clip at this part, and I'm like, who the fuck you think you talking about? Who the fuck you think? You think we're not gonna respond to this after this smug answer? But go ahead, let's go ahead, CJ.
Bernie was like on the 5-yard line of winning the Democratic
I
nomination.
rewinded a little
I
bit for
think
context.
Bernie's campaign had some self-inflicted wounds, but Bernie Sanders, I mean, remember, Chris Matthews was railing and hysterical that the Nazis were invading Paris after Bernie won Nevada. He was assumed for like a couple days that he was about to win the Democratic nomination. So it's not so long ago within the Democratic Party, an actual progressive had a chance to win the nomination. We can't really say that about a third party candidate. That doesn't mean you don't try to grow a third party movement, but what do you say to people who are critical of Marianne or anyone that's going to run again within the Democratic Party?
I think you put it perfectly, Jordan. How did Bernie Sanders do? How close did he get to the White House? How close did the Green Party get to the White House? It's simple. I mean, we don't have to, like, I don't know if people have noticed, there's a lot of crises going on in the world. There's a far-right movement basically trying to end democracy in our country.
Are you talking about the Democratic Party, or are you bringing up January 6th? Like, are you bringing up election deniers now? Krystal, go ahead, Nick. It sounds like you were going to chime in too.
She about to go right into Democratic Party talking, but continue because I'm gonna pack this up real easy.
You're gonna pick it all together. Okay, let's go.
You know, working people are suffering every single day. We've got a climate crisis that's unfolding. I mean, continued insane instances of police brutality that just make you want to weep and scream and your stomach churn. And they want to like wait around for some theoretical revolution. I'm sorry, grow up, get serious.
So, Paul, see. So they come at us with this attitude, with this ridiculous logic, and then they think we're the toxic ones when we have to debunk this. We are the channel of the working class. We are the channel of the third parties. We have to debunk this nonsense. So first, Krystal, like, we got all these problems. We got climate change. We got a violent police state. So let's support a party that's responsible for all these issues. It's the solution that comes from the deeply serious Krystal Ball. So Joe Biden and the Democratic Party is funding the police more. You deeply unserious clown. It's the Democratic Party that took 50% of COVID money and gave it to the police. It's the Democratic Party that literally expanded on Donald Trump's public drilling project. Biden is fracking more. They're spending more on the military budget. The Democratic Party is not serious about the climate crisis. Neither are you, Krystal Ball, you deeply unserious clown. You are not serious about the climate crisis while advocating for the Democratic Party. They are the biggest polluters. They fly private jets. They fund the military. They fund weapons programs that are responsible for massive emissions. And they are also driving us into World War III. These are giant problems that you do not care about. And you gaslight people by bringing this up and say, this is why we need to fight for these issues by supporting a party that is doing it worse than Trump did.
It's so ridiculous.
Do you guys read? Do you guys hear what Glenn Ford said? Do you guys read? I know you guys don't. I know you guys don't. I know that's what we do. We read. Glenn Ford explains Democratic Party is the more effective evil, Krystal. But you don't care because you're rich and you're white. You're a rich white millionaire who is not impacted by any of these policies by the Democratic Party. So you don't care. You don't care. So you wag your finger at people who are impacted by these issues because they don't want to support a party that's complicit with them. This is disgusting. You are disgusting for this. Go ahead, CJ.
It's spot on. I'm just going to add to some of your same points. I have this written down. The far right, she says we're being invaded by a far right movement.
Yeah.
Because the far right movement is in the Democratic Party, and it's all the points you have. I have the same things listed. I'm like increasing funding to the police state, $100 billion to Ukraine, marching us into nuclear war with 2 nuclear parties. The far right movement is in the Democratic Party also.
Nobody is more far right than Eric Adams. Nobody is. Who's more far right than Eric Adams? A Democrat. But go ahead, CJ. I just want to add that quick point.
And then she says, ending the democracy. I'm assuming Krystal is pushing January 6th. Insane instances of police brutality. Does she know that the Democratic Party just gave the police state more money? The same police state that's doing all those insane instances of police brutality. That's the phrase that she used. When these arguments come out of their mouths, it's almost like, did they rehearse this? Did they write this down? Because it's so easily debunked. I'll pass it back to you, Nick, if you had anything else.
Yeah, it's so easy. Let's play that part of Krystal concept. Let's play it again, and let's play a little bit more. Because there's so much to say. I like, especially the far right part, where it said there's a new growing far right movement that want to hijack democracy. Yeah, I'm glad you got your talking point for Morning Joe, Krystal. The far right movement in this country is the Democratic Party that is teaming up with landlords. Like my Democratic Party mayor is doing in Kansas City, that is making rent prices unaffordable and cause a black exodus of Kansas City. That's a real issue, Krystal, that you don't have nothing that's not affecting you. Some people in chat say, what do Krystal being white have to do with any of this? Because she's not serious about these issues because it doesn't affect her. Quentin Lucas and Emmanuel Cleaver, the Democrats in our area, and that's just the Kansas City Black Caucus. Then you have Eric Adams in New York. You have the insane right-wing Democrats in LA. Look at how they treat the homeless there. You guys don't care about any of these issues, and you guys are advocating for the party responsible for this. But you want to talk about the far right coalition that is dismantling democracy, which exists in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party,
right?
The party that's funding Nazis, literal Nazis in Ukraine. And the reason why I bring up her background, because these are the people who don't care about this stuff. Remember the poll we just showed you, where you ask white people, Latino people, and about racism, they care about virtue signaling bullshit. Then you ask black people what matters. They say the structural racism, the police state, the everything that economically responsible for a life. That what we want to fix.
Structures and institutions.
Meanwhile, people like Krystal Ball want us to pretend there's only one far right movement in the Republican Party because the Democratic Party got people who can tweet nice. This is unserious garbage that I'm coming at her with this heat because she came at us. She answered this question with unbelievable smug condescension that we're supposed to take. That we're supposed to be okay with Krystal Ball being a brat and pretending that we deeply unserious. Meanwhile, she is the one who is deeply unserious with her answer and her tone in it. I don't tell police people, I will match your tone. I don't give if you gonna come at me at heat, I'll come at you with heat. You want to pretend that our movement is dumb, Krystal? I just explained why what you just said is
This argument, though, against the Green Party is ridiculous. To make this argument against the Green Party, you have to have at the same time believe that Marianne Williamson has a real shot at winning the Democratic primary. In order, because what you have to be saying is that no, she's not going to run green because she obviously can't win. So you must be saying she can win as a Democrat and she can't win at either one. Exactly. So then the question becomes, Marianne Williamson is not, whether she runs whatever party Marianne Williamson is not going to be the president of the United States whatsoever. So because of that, as a left movement, we have to say now, is it better to build up a third party that we can gain leverage with since we're not going to win either way? Is it better to put $100 million into a party that's already terrible and corrupt, not do anything for us, or to put 100 million into the community and also take some of those people in the community and have them run in races.
Yeah, exactly, CJ. Can you play the answer from the beginning again? And I just want to emphasize enough that these are the people that the status quos and these people will tone police us, and they expect us, working class people, to be nice to these privileged Karens who talk to us in this way and pretend that we're not serious about strawmanning our arguments. No, they're not going to work this way. You better represent our arguments fairly, which you guys never do, and talk to us the way you want us to talk to, or I will treat you the way that you guys are treating us. But go ahead.
Chance to win the nomination. We can't really say that about a third party candidate. That doesn't mean you don't try to grow the third party movement, but what do you say to people who are critical of Marianne or anyone that's going to run again within the Democratic Party?
I think you put it perfectly, Jordan. How did Bernie Sanders do? How close did he get to the White House? How close did the Green Party get to the White House? It's simple.
So if I was in the room and she came in and she was like, hey, here's Krystal Ball. All of you aren't on board with Marianne Williamson. She's going to give you a pep talk to try to talk you into it, okay? Yep. And she came in and said this. I'll be like, you're trying to convince me of something? Now, you tell me, how is that not intellectually condescending? Because it's a specific condescending she's doing here. It says like, are you stupid? No. The professional managerial class are the ones that are trying to pretend like we're stupid by passing along some of these ideas and these strategies. And RBN is here to critically push back and say, y'all not passing this nonsense on to the working class. And we've drawn the line with Marianne Williamson. And I said in the beginning of this Marianne Williamson thing, I said, this is going to be brutal. Because if you think RBN is just going to lay down because a couple of white left media people say Marianne Williamson is the person, we're just going to lay down and listen to this garbage and not completely destroy your logic. That's not happening. Not happening. And for those still waiting, yes, Marianne Williamson, we saw the interview is like 7 minutes. We're going to be playing that next. This one is almost over, but we're going to be playing that next, and then we'll get out of here.
I haven't seen an inch of it.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
She answers like at least 2 or 3 of the points you made. You can tell she's specifically answering your points from the second video. You can tell she watched the second video, not the original, Nick. Talking about the second one. So,
this is going to be interesting then. Okay.
Let's listen.
I mean, we don't have to, I don't know if people have noticed, there's a lot of crises going on in the world. There's a far-right movement basically trying to end democracy in our country. Working people are suffering every single day. We've got a climate crisis that's unfolding. I mean, continued insane instances of police brutality that just make you want to weep and scream and your stomach churn. And they want to wait around for some theoretical revolution. I'm sorry, grow up, get serious. This is a actual path to having an impact.
Grow up, get serious. I mean, that's not getting anybody on board. But okay, let's break it down. Grow up, get serious, because I feel like we're the ones who are saying grow up, get serious with your strategy. We're like, wait, you want to do what through the Democratic Party? Or is this the same Democratic Party that's using the Senate parliamentarian and using a rotating villain and sending money to you? That party? Grow up, get serious. We should be the ones saying that. Go ahead, Nick.
We should resist the police state by supporting the party that funds the police state. Said the serious person. Said the serious person. This is the person that we're supposed to be nice to, CJ. This person. Jesus Christ. We're supposed to be nice to this person. This is how they talk to us.
Issues that you claim to care about.
One quick point. She knows she's not winning people over with this messaging.
I think
it's about scolding working class people. It's about scolding working class people and telling them to get in line, know your place, shut the fuck up, and follow the plan. That's what this is about. It's not about being influential. It's about flexing your influence and power. RBN, we're not going to accept that. And once again, I'm going to match your tone. This is your language. Okay, we can. If you're going to be this condescending, we're going to expose you as the deeply unserious one. The person who said that we got all these problems, so we got to continue to go through a party. So we donated to AOC, right? Just once again, show you guys how deep upstairs Marianne is. We donated to AOC, and then it comes out that she took our money and donated to CIA Democrats like Connor Lamb and other corporate Democrats, and they want us to do it again. But we're the deeply unserious ones. But let's continue the video.
Now, if you've got another candidate, you got another strategy, please, I'm all ears.
No, you're not.
The reality of the American political system today is we have a first past the post.
She said, if you got another strategy, another party, I'm all ears. If you're all ears, why is there no one pushing back against you guys on this panel? Why didn't you guys invite us on here? But hey, yo, let's have a conversation between Krystal Ball, RBN, Jordan. We're gonna talk about this. You're not open-minded. That's a lie. Go ahead.
Yeah. Let's see.
Voting system that makes it virtually impossible for third-party candidates to compete. Do I wish we had ranked choice voting? Yes, we should push for that. Do I wish that we had a different political? Of course I do. That's not reality. So we can either grow up and get serious about actually wanting to have power in order to impact the issues and the people that we want to have an impact on, or we can sit around and talk to each other and make videos, you know, trashing people who agree with us on 95% of the issues and pretend like.
Do we?
Okay, Ukraine, Israel, the police state, defund the police. Like, what part do you agree with us? Dismantling the military-industrial complex. Where do we agree?
CJ.
It's $15 minimum wage. It's Medicare for all, and get money out of politics. Now we are 95. No, we're not.
CJ.
No, we're not. We 5% agree and 95% don't. Go ahead.
You notice how that number that they make up, obviously, like, yeah, don't like 99% of statistics are bullshit, right? So it's like they pull out this number that is not quantifiable. When they say we agree on 95%, how are you quantifying this? For one, why is strategy taking such a small percentage of that percentage pie?
Right.
Once again, I'm wondering how you get the number 95%, right? So if we have a fundamentally different strategy on how we accomplish goals, and I believe that you are 100% wrong, like you are. You guys believe in supporting, voting the Democratic Party, which is fundamentally different than what I agree with. How much of this pie should be taken out at 95%? I say at least 50. Like, if you disagree on strategy, on how to get stuff done, that's a giant percent of the pie. And then, as you said before, they're not even talking about that policy we actually agree with. Like we asked so many people about reparations and the Ukraine war, right? Police funding. Like, do we really agree? You voted for Joe Biden. You found Joe Biden to be acceptable. You guys found Joe Biden to be acceptable to vote for. Joe Biden was not acceptable for me to vote for because of the war crimes, the death count, and what he has done to my community. I am a victim of Joe Biden's policies. I broke this down many times before. It was specifically the bankruptcy bill. I am a victim of this stuff. So Joe Biden was disqualifying to me. If Joe Biden was not disqualifying for you, despite the millions that he's responsible for killing, despite the fact that he built the student debt crisis, he's literally responsible for deregulating Wall Street and all the horrific stuff that he's responsible for. If you are okay with that, are we really that close on policy? Are we really that close? Right? You guys are okay with someone who's funding genocide. You guys are okay with funding a party that is supporting apartheid Israel. Are we really that in agreement here? Are we really? So let's take
they really see these small, 5 or 6 issues as the whole pie. They really believe, Nick, that $15 minimum wage, student loan debt, unions, corruption. They really believe 6 or 7 issues makes up 95% of the pie, when we're looking at like those 6 or 7 issues literally don't even make up 10% of the pie. What about Israel? What about imperialism? What about dismantling all of these institutions? Like, that is the top thing. And I think, Nick, maybe they think we would rather student loan debt forgiveness over dismantling the military industrial complex. I don't know.
This is a good point, because I explained this quite a while ago when I explained to you guys that social democrats and the Justice Democrats, their primary goal is to convince you that foreign policy is not important. that state violence is not important. So if you had disagreements over our government literally escalating World War III, not that big of a deal. If you disagree with the AOC and the squad being complicit with the Democratic Party supporting Juan Guaido and trying to undemocratically overthrow a government, if you had disagreement with that, not that big of a deal. If you believe in the two-state solution, which is literally the status quo in Israel right now, if you believe in the apartheid state of Israel and in the two-state solution versus someone who believes in equal rights in the one-state solution, equal rights for all. I believe in equal rights for all Palestinians, Israelis, anyone who lives in the Israeli state. The people who believe in a two-state solution supports the status quo, but that disagreement is a small disagreement, apparently, to these people. You guys see how it's a massive gaslight to make you lower your standards to theirs? So I give this example all the time. Would they vote for an anti-gay candidate? I wouldn't. Never. They wouldn't. So why is that the red line? But imperialism, supporting the police state, and all their other crimes is not a red line. These are inconsistencies that makes no sense to me. But
because black and brown lives abroad don't matter.
Not at all.
Black and brown lives don't don't take a priority, and that's why I had this up there. Anti-capitalism, anti-imperialism. To me, I see that as almost the same one and the same. Is number 1 or 2, but they try to make the biggest disagreements over the bigger issues as those just small points, like you're making Israel. Small point. 100 billion. It's just a small disagreement. Yeah. No, those are huge.
Funny Nazis are not a big deal. What?
Let's continue. This one's almost done. Let's continue here.
Like they're horrible people. We can do this like internecine circle jerk forever, or we can actually get serious and have a plan and try to do something.
Oh, I thought I was the only one that calls it a circle jerk.
And we can have a plan. She means you come onto my plan, not two equal people coming together to come up with a plan that they both like. She's saying, you Nick, I'm not going to say that, but you workers come on to our plan.
Yeah, so
get on board.
Are they showing up at our mutual aid events? Are they showing up at Rome's Tour for the Poor? Did they show up at our diaper giveaway? I didn't see them at Casey Tennett's events. I was literally on the ground for Casey Tennett's. I ain't seen it. So they say all the people who work on the outside that actually trying to get shit done, you stop what you're doing and join us. It's never the other way around. It's never the other way around. They want us to shut the hell up and follow the plan, follow the professional managerial class. And RBN says no. That's why they're afraid to show our message. They don't want to show the workers that they are leading astray this message. So then people will start questioning these people. I'm all here. If you guys have any strategies, if there's other ideas out there, I don't know. I only got a giant show called Breaking Point. It's not like I couldn't invite these people on. It's not like I couldn't invite these people that criticizes Marianne Williamson on. I'm open ears, but I'm not gonna do that though. Like who can't see past this? You guys know who these ideas are out there, and you ignore them on purpose. Go ahead, CJ.
I stole that from you. Sorry, Jordan.
Just the hamster wheel of bullshit on the left.
That's it. And I've been nice about it for a long time, but at some point I'm like, look, let's grow up and be real about the political system that we operate in, and not have some imaginary theoretical revolution that's going to happen at some point in the distant future. We don't have time.
You understand how we say infighting? There's no infighting. You understand? You hear what she's saying? When a revolution, she's not going to be there.
Nope.
You understand? So there's no infighting. This is not infighting. These people will not be on the front lines, will not be in the field of this battle at all. And they're letting you know that up front. So what we're gonna do next, I'll bring up the Marianne Williamson interview. This is gonna be
something, man.
This will be a doozy right here. So because I feel like sometimes you can tell Marianne Williamson at spurts she loses her cool, and it'll come out in different spurts. But yeah, let's it looks like they finished. So but let me fast forward it to the interview, everybody, and it starts later in the conversation. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, here we go, right here. This is going to be a doozy for everybody who's watching. So if you haven't watched this, Marianne Williamson appeared on Status Quo this morning talking about this very issue, and she happened to be addressing some of the very points that Nick made in the two streams, one analyzing the interview and the actual interview. So we're going to be playing that. Hang on, let me make sure I have it in the right place. Yes, I do. And let's listen to Marianne. But actually, first, we're sitting at 600 people watching right now. Last time I checked, we were at like 400 or so likes. Could we push to 550? Let me see where we're at with the likes actually here. We're at 438 with the likes. If we could push another 100, let's do another 110. Let's get to 550. Get a few more people in here. You're going to want to listen to this Marianne Williamson explain things here. So let's listen. 550 is the target. Marianne Williamson.
Thanks, Melissa. Talk to you soon. And joining us now is Marianne Williamson, 2020 presidential candidate, author, and who knows, might be running again. Recently opened an exploratory committee for a potential run. How you doing, Marianne?
I'm doing great. Thank you. That was very moving. Melissa Mays is really heroic.
Yeah, I know you've gotten involved and has taken an interest in what's going on there. And I think people who are running or not running need to, because it's beyond a humanitarian crisis still. Yeah, so I wanted to start off. Obviously, there's a big fracas in terms of should, whether it's you or anybody else, run within the Democratic Party if you run.
What does he mean a big fracas?
What word did he say? There's a fracas?
Fracas, I think that's the word.
A fracas. Look. Now looking at us. Looking people somewhere. Who knows who they really are? It's a mystery. Go ahead, CJ.
Oh, so funny.
Running on a presidential level, third party, etc. I wanted to ask you, because I think a lot of people who are
I do notice how they're trying to make this a third party versus non-third party without addressing Marianne Williamson too. You notice that, like, it's third party versus third party. No. It's Marianne Williamson too.
Yeah.
So even separately from third parties, it's Marianne Williamson specifically.
That's such a good point. That's such a good point. Because the objection is you. Like, I don't even want you. Right. You're weak on foreign policy. You're weak on Biden. You don't even understand the criticism that workers have of Bernie Sanders. If you don't even understand that criticism, how are you going to be the effective leader of us? So they don't even bring that up because that's a valid point that they can't really rebuke. None of these Bernie sycophants can. But go ahead.
Fed up and don't want to run again in the Democratic Party. Just look at it as the definition of insanity is repeating the same thing over and over again. Obviously, we know what happened in 2016, 2020.
Yeah, you're making our point. Good job. Go ahead.
DNC, I mean, toss their whole body on the scale. So if you decide to run again within the Democratic Party, why would it be any different? A lot of people think it's insanity and it's a doomed effort before you start.
Well, I think that's a legitimate point, but I think it's also legitimate to ask, why do you think it's going to be any different if you run third party?
Why do you think it's going to be any different if you run third party? You're building a movement outside of the two-party duopoly. See the problem, Nick. The PMC class ain't about no movement building. So any movement building, anything that's talking about bringing workers together, you mean I gotta meet with workers regularly and talk to these motherfuckers? Like, they ain't trying to do any of that. They want, like you said earlier, they want to skip step. They want to they just want to try to win without nothing happening after that.
First of all, nobody knows really more than I. I have the visceral experience. I have the scars to prove it. I know what the DNC does. And in my case, I was simply a mere inconvenience, and I know the viciousness. So I'm not naive about any of that. But we have to look at the whole picture here. And I also want to point out.
How did Marianne Williamson do? I didn't pay attention to her. I don't even recall her running like at the time. I don't remember her being on stage.
I don't remember, to be honest. I don't want to miss it. I don't want to miss
I think she must have. Yeah, we'll find out and then we'll let people know.
If you look at the Democratic Party, look at what happened even in these last midterms. Greg Cesar from Texas, Summer Lee from Pennsylvania, Celia Ramirez from Illinois. There are some new progressives in the House. So it's not like the fight's not going on.
All going for Ukraine war.
At the same time, I certainly think third-party voices are significant. I don't minimize in any way the significance of the unholy alliance between the Democrats and the Republicans, by which third parties have been peripheralized. Abolition came from the Abolitionist Party. Women's suffrage came from the Women's Party. Social Security came from the Socialist Party. Political parties are not even mentioned in the Constitution. John Adams said they're the greatest threat to democracy.
Is she making our point? What is she doing here?
I'll wait to see where it turns. When they turn around here.
Let's see.
Right now, you agree with
She's
us,
making
right?
our point.
How much do you agree with
It's true. But I also think it's naive to think if only we go third party. I know for myself, if I run.
You see how there's no substance. You just gave substance and receipts to why we shouldn't go. And then you just says about just this, and then just move on. There's no having to prove anything about the third party option. It's just, but you can tangibly prove that your option is terrible.
So someone accurately explained it was that when you run for president, you don't want to tell people it's not in your best interest to tell people don't donate to you, right? So she can't tell people that. My question to her that she still. Well, her answer was don't vote for her, right? But the question is, you explain why a third-party movement is valuable because of the sins of the two-party duopoly, as you explained, right? The question is, why should workers invest in such a system that you explain is rigged, is corrupt, and we know that they will not allow progressives to win, that they will rig their primary and their elections, and they're responsible for all these problems. So why should workers invest in that instead of building the third party? You just explained why it's so important. You explained third party is important. So why shouldn't our focus be only on building that up instead of using our finite amount of resources and weakening that movement? That doesn't make these things do not track what they're saying. But go ahead, let's continue.
This is what I was speaking to. Like they're not trying to build up nothing at all. But I'll finish making that point later because but I don't want to spoil what some of the stuff she's going to say. Go ahead.
I know that the effort on the part of the Democrats will be to invisibilize my candidacy. They will have an easier time invisibilizing my candidacy if I run as a third party. I want to be in there. If I run, I want to get to debate Joe Biden. I want to be able to actually.
What are you going to debate him on? Y'all agree on pretty much everything. And you said in your own tweets.
Yeah,
you said in your own tweets how you agree with some of the stuff he does. Go ahead.
Yeah, he praised one of Biden's speech. Said it was a great speech. And this is another part of my criticism. There is no value in a left representative debating Biden if you're not calling him out for escalating World War III, right, which is the biggest story right now. If you're not going to call him out for funding DHS more, funding ICE and the police more, these are issues that is not. The awareness is not where it needs to be right now. We all are on board on Medicare for all. The country already supports this stuff. Are you going to call out the Democratic Party for their corruption? Even then, you guys are not addressing the primary concern. The concern being that no one in the Bernie sycophant camp can address. If third-party movements are as important as you just described, why would we waste resources? And the reason why third parties are not building momentum is because we have people in reformists and people that want to go through the Democratic Party that is stifling the momentum of third parties. So what are you trying to do right now? You're like, I want to build a relationship with the Democratic Party. Hopefully they allow me in if they play fair. During that time, we could be building up third parties via mutual aid networks, as we explained many times on the show before. But you're not. You guys don't want to do that because you guys will make a shortcut. They want to run this campaign. They want to get in and out. They want to get the notoriety. They want to write a book. They want to make a few $1 million, and they're done. And that is the critique of Bernie Sanders. He's not utilizing the movement in his outside game. He ran, said he's going to wage a political revolution, and then immediately became best friend with Joe Biden afterwards. Now you're not putting no pressure on these people afterwards. And that's clearly what you guys are going to do. But go ahead.
Be not easily ignored. And if I run as third party, it would be easier to ignore me, which is not to discourage.
Does this sound like she's going to do a dirty break here? Does it sound like she would do a dirty break? Does that sound like a person who wants to do a dirty break or is even open to it? I don't hear that the way she's talking about third parties.
People, particularly, individual races are different. There's some districts where you can, you could get there as a third party person and it would help. But and if somebody feels in their conscience and in their gut, the way I can best contribute to the fundamental change in this country is to go third party, then they should do that. But I don't think there should be this projection of guilt or this suspicion of people who go the other way. This is a whole system.
The suspicion of people who continues to go through the Democratic Party. Go ahead, Nick. We wanted to stop at the same part.
What Marianne Williamson is telling workers right now, stop using historical precedent. Yeah. Stop using the examples that we've seen in recent memory of progressives being elected and immediately selling us out. Stop using the examples of us literally running the same strategy and losing. Stop using facts and knowledge to debunk our strategy. That is what she's asking of us right now. Please be silent. Allow us to grift the Democratic Party and their supporters. Allow us to get us our consulting jobs. Allow me the time to write my book. And please don't question us, even though we are doing something that fundamentally makes no sense. As Jordan from Status Quo said in the beginning of this interview, the definition of insanity is what you guys are doing, but we can't question it because, hey, man, you guys are being rude. Civility politics. Come on, man, let's vibe over here. You guys can work hard over there. Why guys let me vibe over here? Let me do my thing. That's what she's saying. That is what people who are anointing the left candidate is saying. That we should shut up and allow people to waste the working class resources. Like, this is ridiculous and unserious. Krystal was calling us unserious. Meanwhile, this is the unserious part of them saying that we're not going to have a movement built on democracy. We're not going to have a horizontal movement where we literally base our model based on the dictatorship of the proletariat, the democracy, what people feel is best for the movement. We want the top person. We want a top-down model. Will one person tell you what we're going to do and everyone shut the fuck up and fall in line? That is fundamentally against everything we've been telling you guys. We need a democratic organization. What they're doing is fundamentally anti-democratic. You shut up and fall in line. No. Go ahead, CJ.
And we should use every option at our command to make a change. To me, that includes working within the Democratic Party.
And let me ask you a follow-up to that, because I can tell you, having covered particularly Bernie in 2016, I mean, they invisibilized him significantly. I remember I was at Washington Square Park. He had inside the park and outside the park.
I want the video to keep playing, but Marianne will be different. Why? Like, you guys keep saying stuff, but the conclusion you guys keep leaving off. I was there on the Bernie campaign. I saw how much they invisibilized him. But man, I'm glad you're here to solve the problem.
Why would she not be more invisibilized than Bernie Sanders when she can't pull the same crowds? They have reasons to cover him. What reason are they going to have to cover her? Who is she going to pull? Who?
They floating this deeply unserious bullshit, but then they want to call third-party supporters unserious. Get real. Go ahead, CJ.
Almost 40,000 people, and they didn't show it on CNN. They showed Donald Trump's empty podium. So I think in terms of being indivisibilized, if you're one of the only candidates primarying President Biden, couldn't they also just ignore you then too?
Of course they will. Of course they will. But let's go back to the Bernie example, because.
But let's not talk about that, because then I'm not going to get the 100 million from the workers.
Let's have a serious conversation. Sorry, CJ, but let's say.
No,
this
go ahead.
So what are you guys playing here? So you guys are going to primary Joe Biden, and the media class is going to be okay with that. You guys are going to go against Kamala Harris and their anointed Pete Buttigieg, and the media is going to be okay. So let's say Biden doesn't run. Then that means there's a primary race between the neoliberals, and they will invisibilize you again. If Biden does run, then they will smear you. They're like, how dare you run against Biden? Because even Bernie Sanders said he wouldn't run against Biden. He said he will only run if Biden doesn't run. So if you ran against Biden, not only will they invisibilize you, the few times they do cover you, they will call you a divisive, unhinged lunatic. So what is this new? What's supposed to be new here that didn't happen in 16 and 20, but to a worse degree? Let's continue.
That argues both things. On one hand, you're absolutely correct. At the very beginning of 2016 primary season, Bernie was getting the same number of people at his rallies that Donald Trump was getting. But the media thought they would get more clicks, more hits, more sensationalism out of running coverage of of Donald Trump than Bernie Sanders. Les Moonves made the pretty famous comment, bad for America, but good for CBS. We all know that. But then there's another hand on which you can't say he was invisibilized in the larger sense. I mean, he's Bernie Sanders. He has changed the ethers.
The cult of Bernie Sanders reappears.
Yep.
Shows his ugly head again. Go ahead.
I thoroughly debunked this. In her response to me literally explaining how Bernie Sanders is a war pig who fund war, is a guy who abandoned his movement, who we can't even get to tweet about Medicare for All rallies. Her response is, well, I just see Bernie differently than you do. I know him. He's my friend, and he will be friendly to me. Like, it's not even addressing my criticism. See, that's a cult. That's why I call it a cult. A lot of people think I'm being mean by that. But if you talk to a cult member and you bring up facts to that person, and they're like, well, I just believe in different stuff than you. Right? You'd be like, all right, this person is a cult. I'm gonna move on. That's what you guys do with Bernie. Bernie, his votes is directly responsible for a military industrial complex boom. Is that exaggeration? No, that's a fact. That's a fact. Go ahead.
Did they do him dirty? Absolutely. But it is in Medicare for All is in the ethers, political ethers, in a way it would not have been without.
I explained this to you. This is how you know Marianne does not retain information. She's not trying to learn. She's not a good faith. Like, I explained to her, Medicare for All is dead. The only people who are selling the idea that it's not are the people with health care. And then they use that to justify why they're not showing up at marches. Like, would you guys at the Medicare for All marches? I gave a speech at the Kansas City Medicare for All rally. The Vanguard didn't. They showed up late. They showed up to none of these damn events. I gave a speech at the Kansas City Medicare for All rally that nobody in the progressive movement showed up for. Biden said he would veto Medicare for All. Pramila Jayapal and the progressive movement won't even put it up for a vote. They don't even tweet about it. They don't even talk about it anymore. It is dead in the Democratic Party. It is dead. And this is me being very optimistic right now. It is dead for at least 10 years. 10 years. CJ, how optimistic is that? Right? So I'm being optimistic for the sake of your argument. Medicare for All is dead for at least 10 years. But you guys still saying that Medicare for All is going strong because of Bernie. Bernie and progressives are complicit with killing it by signing the okay for neoliberals who said they will veto the movement, the bill. And they don't talk about it. And they don't put pressure on them about it. They are complicit with making Medicare for All weak. Continue, CJ.
So Marianne Williamson thinks she's on the level of being an actor like Tom Cruise and Will Smith. She thinks she deserved $25 million to just go on stage and be there saying words, and that's it. That is our only task, to get her on stage, and it costs $100 million to get her on stage just so she can talk about policies everybody already wants. What is she going to deliver that's new, Nick? Because Bernie Sanders delivered Medicare for All and popularized it, but that was new to the ether. What are you bringing new to the conversation? You're not bringing anything new. Are you bringing defund the police? Are you bringing stop funding Israel? Are you bringing, why are we funding Nazis in Ukraine? You're not bringing any of that. Now, if you were bringing some of that, I would at least be like, okay, I see why you would do it, because
like,
at
that's
least
interesting.
you
I'm
yeah,
like,
you will
wow.
be able to get on stage. But I'm just saying, her delivering that same message that I want her to deliver still probably wouldn't land as good if it was Chris Hedges or somebody else. So even still, you would be delivering the right message, but I still would think you're not the right messenger because you're not that. You're milquetoast.
And now goddamn thing would change. They know it. Marianne knows it. Jordan knows it. Hence why Turner on as well. Yeah. Oh, it was a great event for Status Quo. He wanted to do more of this. When Marianne announced, he wanted to have a Marianne announcement live stream. Like, you guys see how it's about the Bernie media industrial complex. As the working class feeds this movement, they want them to continue to feed this bullshit electoral politics Bernie Sanders movement so they can profit off it on their live streams. So we can have live streams talking about how we're going to take over the house. We're going to take down and bring a ruckus to the house, man. They can about get 20,000 views, man. This is about to be great. This is about to be great entertainment for us. Meanwhile, we are asking at RB because we don't give a fuck. They got to ask us to come on our shows. They beg, like, they had to reach out to us to come on our show. We don't care about the access, right? We are citizen journalists who only care about advocating for our community and the working class. So when we ask them to explain this properly, they say, "Oh my God, why you guys always attacking? Why you guys being mean to our candidate?" This shit make this, and the reason why I'm harsh on this because this makes me sick, man. Like, this is why we got into independent media not to do this, and I see literally everyone do this, and then it's normalized to the point where a presidential candidate is asked a hard question by a black poor person. I am poor. I am poor and broke and have no power. And then people say, "Oh my God, you being too mean to her." Fuck out of here. This should make my skin crawl. This new era of progressive access journalism. We are not supposed to be civil to these people. Jordan, you are not supposed to be friends with these politicians. They should be afraid of you the way they are afraid of us. They should
Isn't
not.
that the same
they should
thing?
be swarming in their. Have you guys seen media in the UK? Have you guys seen media in Europe and other countries? Make politicians squirm. We are not their friends. You guys are massively disappointing with this BS. But go ahead, CJ. I know you want to say.
How are they any different than MSNBC's Andrea Mitchell, who's married to Greenspan and knows Hillary Clinton? How are you any different? They're all friends. The media establishment, industrial complex is all friends with the people they're supposed to be reporting on. How is this any different, Marianne Williamson? It's not. You're just replicating what corporate media did and does and putting it on independent media.
About his running. There are so many things that Bernie brought to the table. His entire analysis of the way a neoliberal establishment has suppressed and oppressed the working class people of the United States. So, if you have enough people behind you, even when the system seeks to invisibilize you, which they did with Bernie, which they would do with me, if you have enough people out there, especially on independent media, which is what we're talking about here, then they can't keep the truth down forever.
So how is that any different than the Green Party? If you have enough people, you just said it. So why is it different now that it says Green Party? If you have enough people.
Exactly. She literally makes the point for the third parties there. If there's enough people, we would beat that.
And last question on the third party element. What do you say to the argument that, well, that's all good and well, but how do you even build a third party if you don't have that first person go? You can't build it if you don't get somebody to start and kind of launch the effort, whether it be on the presidential level. You mentioned local levels, but let's talk presidential level. I agree with you. It would be a very uphill climb, likely not to succeed.
Like a very uphill climb, not likely to succeed. How is that sentence doesn't apply to running in the Democratic Party? Tell me.
Same exact sentence. Same exact
sentence.
But
how would it ever succeed?
And by the way, I'm just curious. I'm a little bit off topic, but I'm curious. Mm-hmm. You have someone who running as president. Maybe I'm wrong. I didn't watch the interview. Maybe I should be careful here. You have someone run for president, commander in chief. You're not asking her about Ukraine? You're not asking about none of these foreign policy questions? Like, I tried. We tried to get that in. I wanted to ask about
And she
Ukraine.
dodged it like
She
dodged it like a mother.
And I mentioned we were gonna talk about that as well. Like it's like why no one interested in hearing what the person who's gonna challenge for the role of commander in chief had to say about Ukraine? I just had to interject that. We can move on. I just think that's weird. But go ahead.
If someone like you doesn't, take the courageous stand and do it.
Well, you can't get more stardom than Ralph Nader, and there's still I think if Ralph Nader had run as a Democrat, he probably would have become president. So there are different ways to look at it.
So she's saying, what do you mean, Jordan? You can't get any more stardom than Ralph Nader. Can you get more stardom than Bernie Sanders? You fucking destroying your own freaking arguments here, Marianne. Because if you're saying Ralph Nader had more star power than you, so how can you do it? The same applies to Bernie Sanders. He has way more star power than you, better on politics, even though he's to my right. How is it any different from you?
They are gaslighting people with this argument when they said there's no chance for third party to win. That's why you said that implies that you're gonna have a fair election in the Democratic Party. Right. That the two-party duopoly is how we're gonna get these things done. Krystal Ball said, if you care about police violence, if you care about far-right extremism, then we got to have a serious movement within the Democratic Party. You are literally doing Democratic Party propaganda by implying that they are not, and that's what they don't understand. Go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, let's finish. I think it's rounding down here.
All of this. On one hand, you might be right, and maybe someone out there is feeling within themselves, I'm the one to do it. That's not my feeling, and one of the reasons it's not.
That's not her feeling, but somehow somebody believes she's doing a dirty break. We're like, these two things can't coexist. You can't say she wants to do a dirty break, and right here out of her own mouth, you're interpreting something else to say dirty break, because she never said that, literally.
Never.
You're interpreting that, but something she says literal, you just ignoring it.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
And this is why what the new Bernie industrial complex is doing. This is why it's so disgusting. They were manufacturing consent around that to trick leftists and third-party people to support Marianne Williamson. Because think about how the Vanguard asked the question. They were trying to lead her to the answer. They're like, hey, the Democrats cheat you. Can you do a dirty plate, please? They wanted her to say it. Like, they asked her the question, like, will you do a dirty plate? Is that something that you would consider? So they leading her an answer. The way I asked her, like, will you ever consider running third party? You see how that's more direct? Yeah. That's way more. So they lead her to the answer they want. Then once she didn't even say she would do it, then they all come out and then they literally do propaganda for Marianne Williamson when they all come out and say that Marianne Williamson would do a dirty break when she did not say that. She did not say that.
She did not say that at all.
Many people will look at it like, no, all the third party, they did not say that. Dude, this has got a great video where they break down. She in no way says that.
Say anything.
But they all come out and say they do it. And then I do an interview and I ask her about it directly and then expose how she's against running as a third party candidate. So what do these people who lied about that do? They refuse to play the interview. They refuse to play the interview because they know that they play the interview. They were exposed that they lied to their audience about that because they were trying to trick leftists into supporting them. That's why this new level of access progressive journalism is disgusting, because they're literally here to manufacture consent for a bullshit artist. And then they want to plant talking points out there. And then when anyone don't repeat it, they want to smear us as being toxic or attacking people. No, you're lying to people about Marianne, her chances of winning, and her intentions. And real journalists like us gonna call that out instead of playing access journalism. But go ahead.
Absolutely.
It's because we don't have time. Even if you had someone do exactly what you just said and they were successful, the chances of their actually getting within striking distance of the presidency, which Bernie did, are very, very small. And I think we're at a moment where rehearsal's over, grace period is over. So, the bottom line for me, Jordan, everybody
running as a third party is rehearsal to them.
Yeah, my last point, and this go back to the point I made earlier in the stream. Why would you even want this person to do a dirty break? You see how she fundamentally don't even understand the value and why we should run a third party. So you want that person to be on TV being grilled by neoliberals and the massive media attack that will go at her while she's not even that passionate about the idea. She's not even that passionate about the idea. She don't even care that much about running third party. She fundamentally don't believe in that. But she's supposed to be the movement leader of a third party? That doesn't make sense. Even if she did agree to that.
Absolutely. Let's continue.
Everybody should do what they feel called to do. I'm not going to live true to my heart, true to my gut on my position in one thing, but not on everything. If I do run, it's going to be living the alignment of what I feel deep within myself. And deep within myself, I feel that that's a way I can make the biggest contribution.
Democratic Party, third party, regardless.
Part of this, we have to understand why people who do this refuse to they want to stay within, because how can she funnel them back to the Democratic Party if she's running as a Green candidate? That's a key part to this whole thing. She needs to be able to funnel them back. And if you're already in the primary, you already been invested in Democratic politics, the person you have saying, hey, I'm dropping out. Why don't you continue this fight with the same Democratic Party? That's easier to do than if you're a Green Party. Why would you do that? So it's key to stay within the Democratic Party so you can sheep herd them back. What do you think she's going to do? Drop out and go to the Green Party? Do we really think person running in the Democratic Party primary is going to drop out eventually and then say, vote for the Green Party? This is so clearly, this is what's going to happen. She has to say, vote for the Democrats.
I got to tell you, I mean, I'm a journalist, but I share my.
Go ahead.
And also, Bernie literally said to himself, Chris Hedges explained many times in many interviews. Bernie Sanders said he does not want to get Ralph Nadered. They don't want to lose their social standing. They don't want to deal with the massive societal and media backlash that come from the professional managerial class and their friends. The reason why we advocate for this is because we welcome their hatred. We're not part of their club. They're part of the club, and they don't want to be booted from the club. It will be much harder for her to sell her next book if she is hated by the establishment, the level that Jill Stein is. Oh, Nick, why are you being mean? Why are you accusing her of that? Because it's obvious to everyone who's not friends to her. You got to be friends with her to not see this.
That's such a on blazing fire point there, Nick. Let's continue.
My opinion during Bernie's 2 runs, I think he showed up to a knife fight holding a spoon. God bless him, but he would only go up to a certain line. There were many opportunities that he had to offer specifics on corruption regarding Hillary Clinton, Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. Honestly, I think he let Joe Biden get away with political murder in terms of his civil rights record, his record in terms of African Americans, mass incarceration. I understand, his attitude was run a positive campaign, no personal attacks, but you have to contrast. You have to sometimes play hardball. And I think whether somebody runs in the primary or as a third party, I mean, for example, Zephyr Teachout, who was a surrogate of Bernie Sanders in 2020, wrote a piece for The Guardian. It was fact-based. It pointed out that Joe Biden had some corruption issues, and Bernie's campaign, it was coming from Bernie, totally walked it back. If you run against Biden, are you willing to go there? I mean, not personal pot shots, but on his record, because I think the Democratic electorate was a lot of that got hid from them due to media and other resources.
Bernie is a U.S. senator. He is an institutionalist, and I think he had some assumptions, had some trust that if Biden won, we know he wanted to be labor secretary, then was not given that position and so forth. Bernie has done so much for this country and certainly has done so much for the progressive movement. I don't want to be taking out a baseball bat against Bernie here either. We all can look and we can learn.
So we're not going to learn from our mistakes because you're so worried about your civility politics. You're so worried about being mean to your friends that we're not going to critically analyze what went wrong and then correct our mistakes, because that's what you guys are doing when you guys do this. You guys think I'm being mean to Bernie? No, I'm calling out the mistakes. With Jordan, props to this question, because it's a good question, because he brings up the fact that Bernie threw his own staff under the bus. Zephyr Teachout, who called out Biden criticism, threw him under the bus. So that go back to my original point. If we have people that want to throw people under the bus for calling out Democratic Party corruption, why would we invest in that campaign? Why would we invest in a movement that does that? So that's actually a good point for Jordan there. But why would we do that? And why aren't you having the ability to critically analyze what happened there? You essentially dodged Jordan's question. Like, imagine that. But let's continue.
It's such a, just think about that. A politician can't comment, and you want to run for president, but you can't speak critically, logically, without being offensive. You mean you can't speak about any of your friends that do anything bad, that does anything wrong? Why would we want you as a leader for? Don't you know a lot of the people that in the establishment didn't you meet them when you ran? Didn't you form relationships? So why are we to think she's not going to apply this sort of logic to everybody if we try to get her elected? She is so not for this moment. Nick, I cannot stress that enough. Like, she is so not for this moment. She's not even right for 2020 or 16. I think she's more 2008. She is that far behind as far as I'm concerned. So
obviously I can tell you this much. I have said this to many people. If I do this, I'm not doing this just to make a point. I've already made a point. And I can also tell you as a writer, if you want to make a point much easier with a lot less stuff thrown at you, you don't run
easier.
for
You see how
so
even the men, it's easier. We don't want to do movement building. That's hard. That's the hard work. It's easier for me to get my publicity, for me to benefit what I want to accomplish instead of building a movement. But continue the video. I want to hear the rest of the point.
If I run for president, I can tell you that much. If I run for president, I am really running for president, and that should be the answer to your question.
Well, you said make a point. Are you willing?
What does that mean? You see no evidence. It's that I'm not just running to run, and when I'm running for president, I'm running for president. That should be an answer. What the fuck does that mean? Go ahead, Nick. What does that mean?
Actually, Jordan, I think, is going to ask her the question again because I told you. Marianne Williamson dodged Jordan's question.
Wow.
This is the person that you guys wanted to draft as the left leader. And I won't play the clip because I think Jordan, like, hey, I want to get back to the question. I
didn't see it this far, so I don't know if he does.
Rewind like 10 seconds. Rewind 10 seconds, then play it again. I want to make sure I get it right before I speak on this.
Okay.
Because I pointed out before she didn't answer the question.
Okay, I think we're here.
Part of the Democrats will be to invisibilize my candidacy.
Oh, shit.
They will be.
Hang on one second. I went way too far back. I meant to go right about here.
He is a U.S. senator. He is an institutionalist, and I think he had some assumptions, had some trust that if Biden won, we know he wanted to be labor secretary, then was not given that position and so forth. Bernie has done so much for this country and certainly has done so much for the progressive movement. I don't want to be taking out a baseball bat against Bernie here either. We all can look and we can learn. Obviously, I can tell you this much. I have said this to many people. If I do this, I'm not doing this just to make a point. I've already made a point. And I can also tell you as a writer, if you want to make a point much easier with a lot less stuff thrown at you, you don't run for president. So if I run for president, I can tell you that much. If I run for president, I am really running for president, and that should be the answer to your question.
Well, you said make a point. Are you willing on the debate stage to point out the donors? I mean, Biden at this point is trying to privatize Medicare under the cloak of darkness. There's a lot of issues.
Wait, there's no evidence. Now, wait a minute. There's no evidence that Joe Biden is trying to privatize.
What? Wait. Play.
She's defending Biden. He's asking, are you going to critique him? And instead, she's coming in to defend Biden.
There is no way. So Jordan tries his best to give her a question that is easy to answer. Jordan asked her, if you run, unlike Bernie Sanders, He said, unlike Bernie Sanders, who threw his colleague under the bus for calling out his corruption, will you do what Bernie Sanders did not and call out Biden's corruption? And then she go on the word salad where she says, I'm not going to throw Bernie under the bus. Then Jordan like, God damn it. Let me ask you it again. He's trying to save her. All right, so I'm trying to ask you, are you going to be critical of Biden and his policies? And she's like, well, I don't know. Then you start defending Biden. You can't make this up.
He knows how bad it looks at the time. He knows that this is not. I can't have this be what it was to Nina Turner with the Mike Figueredo interview. I can't have this happen here. He's trying to clean this up because I think Jordan picks up that, hey, this is not sounding that great. This is not going to sound that great. Let me kind of clean this up for you.
Medicare under the cloak of darkness. The Republicans are certainly trying to do that.
Well, no, I mean, David Sirota has reported that he's kept a lot. Biden has.
Their savior, their journey to savior has wrote about this. So she's like, oh, you motherfucker gonna bring me on here to do this.
So then Jordan is like, wait, you don't stop. No, David Schroeder said that. Come on. Bro, he gave her a toss up. And then she started defending Biden and lied about Biden. And once again, props to Jordan for bringing this up. I will give him credit for bringing this line of questioning up because it's kind of exposed Marianne. Because he tried to get her to say that she would be critical of Biden, which will like alleviate left criticism of her. Like I said, remember on my show, I said that I was like, Marianne, I don't like the fact that you're too soft on these people. She's like, Nick, you saying I'm too soft? And then she proceeds to prove my point correct on Jordan's show. I said on my show that you're too soft on Biden, and then she proves it by defending him on a lie.
All she has to say is, yes, I will combat it. You don't have to go in your question, I didn't like what you said about Joe Biden, so let me, just answer the question. That's not the point of the question, but you're so offended by the premise of the question, you have to interject. Yeah, we really feel secure that you're going to go at Joe Biden now. We really feel secure after this answer.
She already a Biden surrogate. That's a good comment.
Joe Biden is trying to privatize Medicare under the cloak of darkness. The Republicans are certainly trying to do that.
Well, no, I mean, David Sirota has reported that he's kept a lot. Biden has continued a lot of President Trump's policies that was essentially backdoor trying to privatize elements of Medicare.
This is the person you guys want to do a dirty breakup with. This is the person you guys want to do a dirty break with. I want to hear her response. Go ahead, play it. I'll just add.
Oh, you don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear it. You see the body language. You can tell she is not happy here. She's not happy. She thought she came on a friendly progressive Democrat network, but she ran into Jordan, who has been criticized by RBN, and I think he has made some adjustments here. Let's rewind it again and listen.
Joe Biden is trying to privatize Medicare under the cloak of darkness. The Republicans are certainly trying to do that.
Well, no, I mean, David Sirota is reporting.
He's not a sexist when he interrupts her. How come he's not a sexist right now? Let's see if it ends with her calling him a man. Are you mansplaining?
Yeah, is
right
Jordan
now?
mansplaining? Gee, wow.
Reported that he's kept a lot. Biden has continued
Look
a lot
at her
of
body
President
language
Trump's
change.
policies that was essentially backdoor trying to privatize elements of Medicare.
Hair twist.
Well, I have not seen that particular David Sirota coverage, but I will certainly look at it.
But this is the person we want. This person who's not informed. You're not informed on the basic crimes of what Biden is doing, but you're the person that we're supposed to annoy.
So she swoops in to play Captain Save a Joe, then finds out there's receipts. So she doesn't go, okay, Jordan, I trust you as a journalist that you're repeating what David Sirota said, another journalist, as true. So if he does, then yes. Instead, she says, I haven't read it, so I'm basically not going to comment on it because you got to prove to me that Joe Biden is terrible. Like you can't see it with your own eyes. How is this weakling? You want to? Did you? Okay.
No, nothing important. I want to say this.
Okay.
Jordan just dismantled her, while being like just basic. Like, oh my, he almost like unbelievable. It's almost like he's shocked that Marianne didn't know this. He's like, you about to make me look bad, right? You about to make me look bad. So I'm glad that he gave her this line of questioning. I will give him props on that since I was critical earlier. Because these are the last 2 line questioning was good. And this makes Marianne Williamson looks really bad right now.
And I think she knows. You can see it in her facial expressions, the putting her hand, like she is like, wow, I thought I was going to get out of this interview unscathed, but damn it, Jordan, this last question, let's listen.
It's clearly because I oppose the incremental approach of the Biden administration. What other reason would there be for me to do that? When you have a promise that you're going to cancel college loan debt and then just really shave off not enough to make a fundamental difference in most people's lives who carry those debts.
No, you mean he set up a house of cards so that it can be easily taken down legally. You see the weak critiques that she is even still saying, and she still hasn't said yes to the question.
Yep. This is the guy.
What are we doing here? What are we doing, Nick, with this person? Go ahead. I feel like you're going to say the same thing.
I think we're making the same point here. These are the people that the Vanguard and some deeply unserious leftists like Krystal and Kyle Kalinske is decided on challenging the Biden regime. Unserious.
Because their whole point, we need somebody on the national stage that's challenging a left challenge to Biden. Where are you hearing the challenge from her? From a friendly network. Just listen.
When you promised that you were going to raise the minimum wage, and then although you do it for federal workers, you just sort of let the.
You notice she keeps giving them credit. She's bringing up things supposedly that is supposedly a critique, but she's giving them a credit in each critique. 2 so far, she's done the same thing. She brings it up, and although he's doing this good, she keeps giving him credit. This is the person that's challenging Biden?
This is exactly why I said you was weak, Marianne, to your face. And she took offense to it. I said it. Look at my breakdown video. I literally said to her face,
I remember you
my
said,
criticism is I think you're too weak on Biden. And the people, she's like, we got you are showing what I said, and this is why they didn't want to show my interview. This is why none of the people want to show our interview, because they will see me call her out on that. They will see that we have criticism on her weakness, and then Jordan like trying to bail her out, like, hey, I know some people that think you'd be weak on Biden. Some people think that you'd be weak, and then he's shocked and appalled by her answer, and then now there's this thing going on in his head, and some people had it in good faith, where they think like, man, maybe Nick was right. If people think I was being mean, this is why they don't show the interview. This is the part where his own audience is like, maybe Nick was right.
Yeah. What's playing in his head is like 30 seconds of a clip from what you was talking when you was eviscerating her. That's what's playing, like Nick talking right now. It's like, wow, maybe Nick is correct here.
Parliamentarian be your cover and don't fight forward any further than that. When you pass a child tax credit that for 6 months cuts child poverty,
this is the credit.
But then just don't bring
the credit.
Don't go out there to permanentize.
You asked her a question, and I'm directing this at Marianne Williamson supporters. Jordan asked her a question about criticizing Biden, and then she brings up bullshit. We've debunked the child tax credit nonsense. They allowed it to expire for one. The two, it didn't uplift people out of poverty that any rational people will actually believe is real. Meaning, you think a single mother who gets a $4,000 tax credit, now she makes $26,000 a year, she's out of poverty. That's what you guys are saying. But anyway,
or the fact that you think that a child can be out of poverty without their parents being out of poverty.
Exactly.
The ridiculousness of that concept, like, where are these kids living at? They got a new house by themselves, or are they living with their poor parents who are still in poverty? It is just absurd. But again, Nick, what is this point, 3 or 4? Each point that she's supposedly bringing up a critique of how she's going to challenge him on the stage, she keeps giving him credit in the critique.
Yep.
When you don't do anything in the movement towards universal health care, when you are willing to continue to play with Saudi Arabia while this incredible while this incredible war in Yemen is going on, when you have not made any statement about the incredible far-right move that's going on in Israel, when you were apparently okay.
As if this regime before the far-right move was better. Like you trying to act like you want to deal with them. Let's let them deal with the two-state solution. Like they were any better, Marianne. Go ahead, Nick.
And you lucky I didn't get a chance to ask you this. Why are you against BDS then? You being against BDS is you being an apologia for the genocidal regime of Israel. Do you understand? So
With
just
the
nonsense here.
$58 billion defense budget, when actually, even though there is money in the Inflation Reduction Act that will create new investment opportunities for green energy, all of that is nullified by the fact that between the defense budget, which is the largest carbon emitter of all, and you are willing to actually okay more drilling permits even than Trump did, thereby continuing.
Are we really to believe this, the way she's having a hard time speaking here? Are we really to believe she's going to deliver any sort of blow that lands on? Are we really, who believes this, Nick? Who but her friends that are trying to literally push this person who is terrible, who's struggling to even make a point here?
To build the infrastructure for fossil fuel extraction at the very time that we should be stepping all this down, there's plenty to offer as a progressive alternative to what I see. You know, the way I look at it, Jordan, I see the Republicans as a nosedive for our democracy, but I see the Democrats as a managed decline. I see
nosedive versus a managed decline. That's what she sees in the Democratic Party. So let's go nosedive. Is that one word or two? Versus managed decline. I think that's it. Yeah. So we're talking nosedive versus managed decline. That's what she said is the difference between the Republicans and the Democrats as far as our democracy. She sees our democracy going into a nosedive rather than a managed decline. This is such a PMC, such a professional managerial class sort of analysis or analogy here. But let's listen to further what she means.
The entire last 40 plus years as an aberrational chapter in American history. American capitalism has gone off the rails.
Only the last 40 years, Nick. Capitalism has been bad. Only the last 40 years. We've only been off the rails. Only the last 40 years. No account for what's happening to Black people. No account whatsoever what's happening to poor people. No account for what's happening. You see how her world doesn't include us when she's talking about these things. She always likes to think back of these times, the good times of the Democratic Party. Oh, when? Back when he used to have colored only signs? That's what you're talking about? Let's continue.
It is unfettered. It is unregulated. It is soulless. It has caused a massive theft from the middle class and the poor in this country of both money and political power, leverage, and opportunity. There's plenty to talk about without personalizing it. But if I run, it will be to make the point that nothing that the corporatist Democrats stand for is a genuine fundamental alternative to
I don't know if you didn't catch that. She's saying there's so many other things to point out than making it personal. That's her answer to Jordan's question of, are you going to call out Joe Biden? So Krystal, what do you say to this answer? She's basically, because you're making the point that we need somebody out there calling out Joe Biden out there on the national stage, you know, critiquing, being the challenger, when she's just literally Vanguard, literally saying there's so many other things to point out than making this personal. I don't get this, Nick. I don't get it. But let's finish this up.
It is still a corporatist neoliberal system that supports the matrix of corporate tyrants. That's what these people are. They're corporate tyrants. We don't have universal health care because of the insurance companies, which are completely unnecessary. We don't have affordable insulin and other drugs because of the pharmaceutical companies. We have disgusting poisoning of our air, of our water, as Melissa Mays said, of our food because of big ag, big food, big chemical companies, the chemicals in our pesticides that harm a child's brain, fossil fuel extraction, what it's doing to the planet, what it's doing to our air. Far too much military influence in our foreign policy because of the military-industrial complex. If we don't create an actual alternative to the Republicans, they will win in 2024. We have to do more than just talk about the amelioration of.
You know that's her main priority. That's her priority. She just, there it is. Go ahead, continue the video.
Stress. We have to be the Democratic Party, or whoever is going to do it, needs to present to the American people the option of a U-turn, the option of fundamental economic reform in this country, which means a lot more than tinkering around the edges, a lot more than playing footsies under the table with corporate America in ways that the Biden administration is far too eager to do.
I want to turn to the latest black man to be assassinated by police. Obviously, there's so many more.
There's like 2 minutes left of this interview. I just want to have 2 minutes left. We can listen to this. I guess she's going to talk about the police brutality
that we have not seen the video of, that we don't know their names. And frankly, I mean, we're two white people, so obviously I don't want to speak out of turn, but I'm just fed up with cable news coverage and the same old shit. We need to have a conversation and better training and et cetera, et cetera. I don't really have the answer in terms of how you can't really reform lack of humanity, but I think we've had a black president in the last decade who did very little, and we obviously have had 2 white presidents who have done very little. The Democratic Party also basically stripped out qualified immunity out of their George Floyd Policing Act. What will change unless a potential president takes executive actions to, actually add some meat on the bone, where police, in addition to criminal charges, can face civil penalty as well?
Well, first of all, he did take some executive action, but you were.
I almost can't take it no more, Nick. Did you not see? She just gave Joe Biden credit. Nobody asked her. Who would think she is a challenger to Biden? She is literally going to be throwing this dude's alley-oops. She's the one. She's going to be throwing him alley-oops on the stage, not confronting him. She is literally keeps giving him unsolicited credit.
She's gonna be on the debate stage like, well, I agree you did a good job with your infrastructure. Well, I agree you did a good job leading us. I got some small criticism here. This is the fighter that you guys trying to do endorse. Do people who push for Marianne Williamson for 2024, do you guys feel embarrassed? I'm legitimately asking, because I'm literally getting secondhand embarrassment for you guys. Like this is, I didn't see this interview. I obviously went in blind because it just happened.
Yeah,
to see her constantly defend Biden as Jordan is holding her hand and essentially begging her to attack Biden I feel embarrassed for you guys. I feel embarrassed for the people who tarnish their reputation as anti-Tudor party duopoly fighters to support probably the weakest person I could think of to challenge Biden. Like, this is unbelievably weak. Anyway, go ahead.
Absolutely correct. He should be talking about it this morning. And to me, it's not only the Tyre Nichols. I'm very concerned about the Tortuguita murder. The police say he shot first, but there's no evidence of that. The body cameras were off. Big shock. We have never had an environmental activist that we know of.
You notice she went off of Tyre Nichols and then just went to the environmental activist. That's something, I don't know if it sticks to me. It sticks to me that why are you not addressing that? Yeah,
it's been killed by the police here in the United States. That happened just a week after the Tyre Nichols murder, and of course the existence and the building of these cop cities, which is absolute infrastructure for police state. So the last thing we should be doing through cop cities or any other policy is actually giving more resources to a system that has clearly already become a rogue institution. There is talk about the George Floyd Policing Act, which would have passed in the Senate. It did pass in the House. It would have passed in the Senate had it not been for Manchin and Sinema. But as you just mentioned, it was still giving a $900 million to a system that some people say you can't trust these people when you say reform and training and diversity and giving them more.
Some people say, you notice how she's distancing herself from the comment by just saying some people say, so that corporate media can say, hey, you said over here, blah, 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 blah. She just said some people say.
More money when clearly that's not working. Some of the social justice organizations are putting forth something called the Breathe Act. Senator Markey and one of the squad, I can't remember which, have
Ayanna Pressley
putting back the ending qualified immunity. But I think one of the things the president can do is use the bully pulpit on this. The American people must recognize what we all already know to be true. Police brutality, this is a very serious issue. And I'll just tell you something else, especially now that we see what's happened with the environmental activists. When Melissa Mays was making the point, so I thought very eloquently and profoundly, don't think it couldn't happen to you. I think we need to see this about police brutality as well. Once you have this kind of carte blanche, you know, what we do is we hold individual police accountable.
She doesn't have complete thoughts.
Is there any more comments on like the strategy? Because we covered this.
No. I'm like
we got a lot of super chats, so I'm gonna run.
Let's get to the super chats. Yeah.
We're
not gonna get to the Nina Turner part today.
I don't want you guys to misunderstand. I'm not saying what you're saying bad at in there. Obviously, that's the part that easy to get right. But we already covered that story, so I'll no value there. Let's check this out. Thank you for $5. Starts, not stays. Marianne has zero political courage. She will absolutely betray the people who support her. And I think it should be clear, especially after that last 15 minutes or so with Jordan, where she was even shocking Jordan with her bad answer. her reflective defending of Biden, and then she looked at me like I was crazy when I said she was weak on Biden and criticizing these people. Now you see why I said that, Marianne?
That's
amazing. Now it's obvious, right? I'm glad that she said that. So now people who watch that, who good faith actors, the people we will never win over, right? But the good faith actors who may not have been on our side at first, they seen that and they're like, damn, man, Nick was right about her. She's definitely weak on Biden. Definitely not enthusiastic about running third party. Thank you for the 199 funky lollipop. Nothing going to change. She's talking too much. Thank you for $20. We got a lot here, so I'm gonna try to get through these a little bit faster. Thank you for $20. Justin, Marianne is trying to act like Joe Stein, but is completely unserious about the revolutionary change we need that stays with destroying the Democratic Party and replacing it with a true party for the people. This is a great comment. The only pushback is she's not even trying to act like Joe Stein. In no way will Joe Stein ever give Biden and the Democratic Party establishment credit. The reason why she was so effective and the reason why she hit 8% at one point and they ran a smear campaign against third parties and smear as a Russian agent, because she would go on these platforms and explain using policy and historical anecdotes why both parties are warmongers, reason why they're not for the working class people. That's why I voted for her in 2016, even though I wasn't even a socialist. I loved how she used to call out the wars. Marianne calling out Biden war. She over here giving them false credit for not privatizing Medicare, even though they're not true. So anyway, good comment. Thank you for super chat. I just want to add, not anything same. That's why Marianne is disappointing, right? Thank you for $65. We need to extract our mind from the electoral time frame so we can spend the time to build alternative, or else we're stuck panicking every 2 years. Well said. Our base ass audience definitely know. This is a solidarity super chat from Kat Terrell. Thank you for $49.99. Thank you for the super chat, Jess. And we know they won't let a challenger win anyway. So not being born U.S. won't matter. Why don't we put Kashama as the challenger to put our demands on stage, give the third party money, and alert that we're winning down ballot and in the upcoming elections? Well said. Never considered that before. Almost any other strategy is better than the incoherent strategy that they have. God knows what their goddamn long plan is, as they call us incoherent. Thank you for $2. Colin, Marianne Williamson is like Trump.
Yeah, this
that
is a long
take live stream to talk about. But go ahead, CJ.
And also, to me, what is pivotal in this comment, the word justified is not, I wouldn't use justified, seems to be misplaced in this conversation.
Yeah.
Justification when we're talking war is not, to me, is not a word that belongs in any sort of conversation that involves war.
Yeah.
Justification, because then if justification enters, then we wouldn't have war. Because there's no, you get what I'm saying? Then if we're using justification, if we're being moral, then would be no war at all. So I would just change that word for that question, but we can move to the next super chat.
Yeah, what's that, CJ? Thank you for 499. Robbie Williamson admitting that there's a slim chance in hell she'll win says it all. She's not pushing the conversation forward. She's wasting our time. But the people who don't care about that are the people who are part of Bernie Media Industrial Complex who will profit off it. So it's not a waste of their time.
Absolutely.
Their channel growth, they're gonna have massive channel growth. They're gonna have more subscribers. They're gonna have access to Marianne and her campaign. So it's not a waste of time for them. It's a waste of time for everyone else. And we're apparently off the cup for saying that, which is obvious to me at least. Thank you for $5. Can grow third party when they hate on them at every turn. And that's why I wanted to do this conversation, because you had these very influential people spreading straw man bullshit arguments against third-party movements, and third-party activists has been too passive as the Democratic operatives smear and misrepresent our arguments. So they're going to call us divisive. They're going to say we attacked them again. But for one, if Krystal wasn't as condescending and they didn't attack third parties in a misleading way, we wouldn't have to do this. Third-party activists at a certain point have to start defending their ideas. How many times do you guys want to get 1% in the vote? I'm tired of seeing the Green Party get 1% of the vote because you guys are too
They're not
afraid.
strategizing, right?
You guys are too afraid to take the argument at your Democrat Party supporting friends. So we can't build this movement. That the reason why this stream has value because we got to push back against this nonsense because third parties for a very long time have done a horrible job at it. Thank you for $2, Jorge. Y'all should interview rapper Immortal Technique. I wish we can get.
Yeah,
big
he was
name
just on
rapper.
somebody's show. He was just on. Oh, Kim Iverson just had him on, like
Really?
literally 2 days ago. Yeah.
He had pretty bass songs as well, right? So yeah.
Well, people like him because he talks political. I mean, he's a good rapper too, but he has some political. But he's been rapping political shit for a long time. Dead Presidents is another one.
Yeah.
Dead with the Z at the end. It's another one that I'm sorry. Prez spelled with a Z. Prez. Dead Prez. They have some good stuff also. Very they're socialists and communists. Those two.
Yeah, I think I read the super chat earlier. This was a good one. Big shout out to Paula. Thank you for the 199. You're right. She hurts, but you're right. Not sure the context of that, but thanks for super chat. Thanks for the $2. I love you, Nick. Love you too, brother or sister. I'm poor. Keep dropping truth. Thank you for the solidarity. Thank you for the $5, Jonas. People are upset because we are not willing to play along. We won't shut up and fall in line, CJ. With this ridiculous Marianne Williamson run, they're still attached to the two-party corrupt duopoly, and we are the post-duopoly leftists. And that's the question for the people who think that we are too toxic or divisive. My question: if you're serious about advocating for third parties, at what point do we take the offensive against people who spread bullshit lies about the goals of our movement, like Krystal just did? There's a point where we got to counteract that, or we're not building towards anything. Thank you for $5. PMCs use polls and common sense like it matters. Bernie won the first 3 primaries and still lost to Joe. Dems will just make new rules to win. That's exactly my point. They keep quoting these early polls, which once again, there's still not even a poll that showed Marianne as a dominant candidate. They're manufacturing consent around her. I've seen an old poll that showed Pete Buttigieg number 1, Kamala Harris quote number 2, AOC like number 5, Bernie like 8 or something like that. So there's not even like concrete data that she'd be a good candidate. They're just pushing her because they're her friends. And Nina Turner poll showed that she was beating Chantel Brown by like 20 points.
Yeah.
So when I hear that, that's why I say they're making the same excuse again. The same mistake again. But anyway, we got a few more here, so I'm gonna push forward here. I think I'll showcase this one before. How did Marianne become the one? Absolutely. It's a long fall from Flint. I like both of them 3 years ago. Now I'm all about RBN, Door, etc. Love you guys. Thank you for the $20. I always say that. I say this literally every single time. Like when I critique these people, I never critique them with the intention of like, yo, we all should cancel them. I just think they got bad fucking ideas. So welcome aboard. That's all I'm gonna say here. I'm not trying to get anyone canceled. That's all. Thank you for the 199. Any strategy for third party like Marina in Mexico? Yeah, that's the goal, is to build that. And I think I advocate taking over the Green Party because I talked to a lot of people in the party that is open to that. And they got a good anti-imperialist, pro-reparations, working class platform. And Joe Stein wings still have a lot of potential. And I realize a lot of people in the Green Party realize that, and they like, even you see Ajamu. Ajamu is aggressively calling out Holly Hawkins recently.
Yeah.
So that's good. That's good. So the Green Party acknowledged, like, yeah, we fucked up with Holly Hawkins. We need to go more the Ajamu, Joe Stein route. If they go that way, I think that's be a party we should take over. But my message is the power is always in our hands. Let's organize locally. Let's form chapters, and let's do everything we can to push mutual aid and improve the material needs of our life. That's the most important strategy I have, because that's how you grow your movement. Thank you for the 199. It's the woman who falsely accused Nick Brana. Ew. Well, thank you for the super chat. I'm not gonna comment on that. Thank you for the $20, Susan. Thank you for always speaking the truth. People desperately need it. Much love, Susan.
I think we got that one early.
Yeah, I think we caught up. We caught up at that point, unless there are any new ones. So I don't have anything else. This is a pretty good Oh, there's another
Yeah,
one.
we're not. So the Nina Turner thing we'll probably add to another, like add as a segment somewhere else, because she said some interesting things that we might want to cover.
Yeah.
Is that another one, Nick?
Yeah, this just came in. Thanks for the $4.99. Just found your channel. Thanks to Jimmy Dore. Do you have any opinions on Andrew Tate? Why don't blacks bring up his what? Why this guy?
Why don't blacks bring up his
From
imprisonment?
the little bit I've heard of Andrew,
he's a joke and a
what are you
character
guys
that
serious?
does not to be taken serious.
Andrew Tate is class loyal. He constantly, I seen him taunt some person who was asking to raise money for his child, and he was like, "Isn't it funny how you got to beg for this money, but I got all these cars?" That person, fuck that guy. Are you guys serious? This guy's a millionaire class trader, deeply unserious culture warrior. We are against culture warriors. He's a deeply unserious culture warrior pimp.
Yeah,
like he's not someone who's serious.
Thank you, Nick, for the super chat. But we just don't take him serious. He's not a serious person. That's why we don't really talk about him, because he's not serious whatsoever.
It's nothing but culture war out of that guy. And he's like the new distraction for the workers. And he always say these crazy ass comments just to get attention to himself, which works. That gets him on trending. But he's not cognizant of the working class. His people, they constantly talk about taking advantage of poor people and dehumanizing poor people. He essentially like, bro, I think one of his brothers was like, if I ever had to live one of your guys' life, your pathetic life, waking up every day working, I would kill myself. He demonizes what it means to be a worker. Let's say you're not successful.
Yeah, I don't know. This is all brand new. I don't know any of this. I don't know. Literally, I know his name and I know his face. That's
he was
it.
trending so much. I had a tweet. You guys can find it. Like if you search it, I was like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" Like I keep saying it. I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. And then people start putting receipts in the chat. Like, okay, dude, this dude is not. I don't talk about him. Literally never did segment. I only talk about now because super chat or whatever. Because he's not even worth doing a segment over. He's a clown. Like he don't talk about any class issues. It's all about how you control your woman. You shouldn't be broke. If you broke, you worthless.
Yeah, that's what I don't get. I don't get like what is he? I don't understand what is he do? Why do people watch him or look at him? Like, what does he do?
Yeah, I'm only talking about this because super chat. I'm not trying to hate on. I appreciate super chat and this open exchange of ideas. Like, but I'm not. I don't even cover him because it's such a waste of time. Like the same way I don't like cover like Charlie Kirk. Like there's some people that's like not really worth it, and he's not. And like everything I've seen from him is not serious and not within any context of any struggle. It's rich man influencer bullshit. And I understand there are a lot of people who don't got daddy figures who look up to these people on social media, talking about their ball. That's like who he is. He's like this guru, like Jordan Peterson, who tells people to clean his room up so people.
I don't know Jordan.
So like
Peterson
this,
either,
so think that they're not our culture. That is not like what we're connected to. Like no one in my hood is talking about Andrew Tate. No one in my hood is talking about these people. So I try not to.
Anyway. I just found out who Andrew Peterson was a couple of weeks. Wait, is it Andrew Peterson or who did you say?
Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson. Like I just found out this. I don't know. I don't understand why people listen to these people. To be quite frank with you, I'm like, what? And why are we listening to either one of these people? I don't get it. But all right, Nick. Any other super chats?
And like the celebrity. I told you guys. I talk about so many times. The celebrity worship, man. Celebrity worship makes my skin crawl. And there's an intense amount of celebrity worship that goes around Andrew Tate, Jordan Peterson, all these deeply unserious, rich, non-class analysis, social media influencers. Where I'm like, that shit, like the worshiping the floor that they walk on for no reason. I never tell you guys to put us on the pedestal. I told you guys we are ordinary activists that are sharing our experience, trying to help and educate. But they purposely try to create a cult. And you see people, they try to create a cult of personality. And that's why I see with Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson, these people. They got a cult of personality, people who love them, people who celebrity worship them. And I see that as a massive waste of time and soul draining. So many people wonder why they're depressed, why they look back at their lives and why they ain't accomplishing anything, why they ain't doing anything. Because they spend so much of their time focusing on Kim Kardashian, Andrew Tate, all these people that are here to waste your time. So I just don't do it. I just opt out of paying attention to that shit. And that helps my mental health. Like people pay attention to so much of this stupid nonsense, which I avoid for the most part. So I remember last comment. I remember when we had Jackson Hinkle on, And I remember people was like, why didn't you ask Jackson Hinkle about this tweet that he said, this video that he said, you know that Jackson Hinkle said this about women. This I'm like, I didn't even know that because I'm like, I'm not even I'm not even stressing on that shit. You know what I mean? Like I talked about mad communism because we talking about communism. That was about Marxism. Right. It was a political intellectual debate and disagreement that we had. So I was interested in bringing him on for that. But then people bring up other things like, bro, I got so many problems in my life, guys. Like so much shit going on. Like I research. I spend hours of research on. I do foreign policy live streams. I do a lot of research. I'm trying to support my family. Like there's a lot of shit going on. I don't have time, and people stress themselves out by following every fucking thing, man. And anyway,
I don't get.
I'm ranting now. I'm just ranting.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm done. So anyway, tomorrow, Comrade Misty is joining us. Tuesday, I got Professor Anthony Zankis that is scheduled. So, man, I guess this marathon
working on some.
But
yeah, we're working on some.
Yeah. So we gotta take advantage of the momentum. So yeah, we're doing the stream. This is my 7th stream in a row. Probably gonna move on to 8th and 9th, but we gotta take advantage. We gotta take advantage of this momentum.
We gotta take advantage of the time, and we'll take some.
I see you guys. I'll let you close.
Let me just show you this before you go. This is one of the articles I want to make sure we get in. This is second stream. I haven't been able to get it, but U.S. is already preparing for war. I know you heard this. A general is talking about in 2 years war with China. So look for that segment along with Nina Turner probably tomorrow. We got Misty tomorrow, so check us out. Tomorrow, Nick and CJ Mondays. We usually have a jam-packed show, so make sure you check us out. And I'll start the outro video if you want to see you guys tomorrow. Nick. Yeah, so we got an outro video. I think we're gonna go with this one. We didn't have a chance to cover Nina, but we got it queued up for a section, and we use it as an outro video. But this is the interview that we're gonna be analyzing it in a future video, likely to one tomorrow, if not Tuesday, with the roundtable.
People who say that as well. You got a lot of people talking a lot of mess, but they will never put nothing on the line other than to be Monday morning quarterbacks and commentating on social media. If you're not in the arena, I really don't want to hear nothing that you got to say, really. And that's honest. And I don't care if you're progressive or not. All that smack talking when you're not going to sacrifice anything about how hard somebody went or did not win. No, very few people, Jordan, go as hard as I do in the paint. And you know that you have witnessed that. I will. But that doesn't mean I always agree with every single thing that any one person or group of people say. And also, as a Black woman, I just want to let it be known, I claim my agency. So I don't care if you're a progressive, a liberal, a moderate, whatever, little country, little rock and roll. What you're not going to do is tell Nina Turner what to do, period.
Speaking of that, I got to ask, listen, the Freedom Caucus just held Kevin McCarthy hostage. What was it, 10, 15, 20 votes? Obviously, I don't agree with the Freedom Caucus on much of anything politically, policy-wise, but I do agree, hey, play a little hardball. Bottom line, AOC, the squad, they ran on playing hardball. We know what she said, bring the ruckus to the Democratic Party. I'm not saying you need to hold the Democratic Party hostage on every single vote, on every single thing. Being a politician also means you have to compromise sometimes. But I just want to play this clip because AOC responded to the Freedom Caucus what they did. I just want to play this clip.
I see some people say, Dems should negotiate to get concessions. We do all the time. But what we don't do is bring them publicly in order to empower not just Republicans, but the fascist flank of the Republican Party. And ironically, a lot of the concessions that Kevin McCarthy, in nature, they're not the same ones, of course, but the nature of some of these concessions actually do overlap with some of the concessions that have been the subject of private negotiations on the Democratic side. We have also negotiated for certain budgetary, we have negotiated for certain budgetary rules. We've negotiated there have been negotiations around committees, budgetary rules, and very similar kind of scopes and areas. But we do that prior to getting to the floor vote. Not only that, but when people say, Dems should do this. There's also a very critical question of just basic math. The House Freedom Caucus comprises of 20, well, we see the holdouts here comprised of 21 members. That is a huge faction of your party to go into a vote day without negotiating with, without satisfying. And for Republicans to go, for Kevin McCarthy to go into a speakership vote while knowing that he does not have 21 people is almost unthinkable. So there's like just the basic math of the issue. Democrats do not have a flank of 21 that would do that. Now, we do have groups of 10, 20, 30 that do negotiate for things, but we do it before the actual floor vote. Now, so there's just like the basic, question of numbers. 21, that.
So there's a little more to that, but I just want to ask you, not only about AOC, but in general, I don't really understand this strategy of let's do everything in private. Sure, and certain things you got to be diplomatic, but this. Bernie Sanders and you and everyone else cultivated a movement, and they're just waiting for a fight. It just doesn't make sense to me, this strategy of AOC, the squad, to do everything in private, say we get concessions, you just don't know about it. I mean, I think what the Freedom Caucus did, whether or not we share the same policy view, we need more of that, and we're not getting that.
Yeah, well, we do not share the same policy views of the Freedom Caucus. I'm going to put that in the parking lot. But the tactics that the Freedom Caucus used to exact concessions was right on the money. There does come a time, and yes, you have to be diplomatic. I served in the Ohio Senate. I was the minority whip for my caucus, meaning it was my job to whip votes, especially votes that were, where we knew that we needed to move as a group. Sometimes those moments are there where you have to make some type of compromise, get it, even though some of these people don't know I get it. I did the job. However, there comes a point in time when people show you who they are, as Dr. Maya Angelou once said, you got to believe them. So the tactics that the Freedom Caucus used was right on the money. One of the concessions that they got was that the leader will not